Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 40th episode of the Exploring Antinatalism Podcast, a podcast all about the subject of antinatalism created by antinatalists. My name is Oldphan Sukenick, also known as Forever Wolf Films on YouTube, and today I'm speaking with Dietz, the founder of the incredible new Portland-based antinatalist street activism and outreach group, Stop Having Kids.
So important. I've never seen this out here in my life, and I've always believed it, and I've never seen it expressed ever. And for that, I am extremely grateful.
Are you familiar with the term antinatalist?
Not at all. This is the first time I've ever seen anything this freaking positive in my life out here.
So welcome to the Exploring Antinatalism Podcast, Dietz.
Thank you, Amanda. Also, by the way, thank you for becoming a Patreon supporter yesterday.
Absolutely. Something everybody listening should definitely go do, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Yeah, I really do love what you guys are doing, and I'm so excited to get into all of it with you today. So let me just start out by asking the most basic question. Who is Dietz, and what is Stop Having Kids?
Well, that sounds like a basic question. I don't know per se what to say for who is Dietz. You can ask me anything you want on this podcast, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. I mean, what I will say about who I am is I kind of feel like an alien of the human species, like an alien who's in a human body, but I feel alien from much of our species. So I'll say that. And Stop Having Kids. I'll give a short, simple answer for that, and then we can expand upon it throughout the podcast because it's Stop Having Kids. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
But at the very core, it's to help normalize antinatalism, child-free living, and helping already existing life. And trying to really encourage people to get active about this stuff, not just, talk about it online and in private with their friends and their partners and so forth, but to actually get out there in the world and really promote these messages and get other people thinking and other people talking about this stuff and really validating people because the word antinatalist is not a very well-known word. And there's a lot of people in the world who are antinatalists. They just don't know that word.
Exactly.
And being out there and promoting these messages, it's really, it's been a very effective way to validate people, their thoughts and their feelings, because a lot of people have antinatalist thoughts and feelings, but many of them haven't met other people or many other people who feel the same way. And it's such a breath of fresh air when these people, see the Stop Having Kids stuff and they feel validated. And, some people even thought there was something wrong with them for having these thoughts and feelings. And they're like, oh, okay, this is actually like totally fine. Like it's totally valid to feel this way. And it actually does make sense. So we're really helping people to feel a lot less alone in the world for the way they feel and think about things.
Extremely well said. I absolutely agree with you. In my own experience, I have noticed exactly what you're saying. There's a sort of relief that people express when they're finally finding somebody that is also saying these things that they felt or thought of, their whole lives in some cases, but have never found that sort of validating voice for. When people aren't given language and other people, to help them connect with these ideas, then it, as you're saying, it can be extremely alienating. So I think you are doing something very important with Stop Having Kids.
Exactly. And we're really trying to get the conversation started as locally and globally as possible. And I get into these situations with people every week, just by being out, just by going about my life and wearing Stop Having Kids stuff. So many people comment on it.
Amazing. Amazing. Dietz, may I ask, why are you an antinatalist?
Well, I've been an antinatalist for over half my life at this point. I only found out about the word antinatalist probably 7 years ago when I had my first partner. And one of our first times hanging out together, she asked me if I was antinatalist, and I was like, "What's that?" And she explained very briefly, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I've been like that for a long time. I just never knew that word."
Wow.
So I think my memory is pretty shit, but if I had to guess, I think the first time I realized I was antinatalist was maybe in it was either late middle school or early high school. And if my memory serves me right, I was leaving lunch early. I would just go to lunch sometimes and just try to eat and then just like get out of there. And I would just try to walk around the hallways and stuff for the remainder of the lunch session because I just didn't want to be around all those people. I didn't really have any close relationships with the people I went to school with. And I just honestly couldn't really stand most of them. So I would have just preferred my alone time. And I was just walking out of lunch one day and I was just thinking like, just why does anyone need to experience this? Like, why does anyone need to be brought into this world? And yeah, I mean, at its core, no one is being deprived by not coming into existence. And
right,
by coming into existence, you're going to suffer all kinds of problems and hardships and struggles that otherwise could have been avoided. And yeah, it's just a really gnarly world. And when I first became antinatalist, my awareness of what was taking place in the world was next to nothing. So, as I've gotten older and I've learned so much more, and I was never willfully ignorant. There were just so many things that I just simply wasn't aware of. And yeah, as I've become more and more aware of the world and seen things not change for the better at all, my feelings about antinatalism have only strengthened, which is obviously what led to, building up Stop Having Kids. But yeah, I mean, I think there's so many reasons that you come up with for why we shouldn't be bringing kids into this world. And I think we should, have a lot more freedom than we do. And our privacy has been taken away. And just like what kind of life are we giving people? We could spend 10 hours straight if we wanted to, really talking about so many things, so many reasons why it's so messed up to bring someone into this world. So yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this throughout the episode. But
absolutely. But it does seem endless when you really get down to it, just all the many reasons. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do you define antinatalism?
Well, I kind of define it, differently at different times. I tell a lot of people about the word, so it's not always the same words that are coming out of my mouth, but I say it's being against human procreation. And there's some people who are antinatalists and they might be antinatalists because they just like hate humans.
Right.
For me, I'm antinatalist, and I think most antinatalists are antinatalists because of the ethical implications of coming into existence. All the suffering that it's going to cause that individual to come into existence, all the suffering that individual is going to cause, potentially cause other humans and other animals, the destruction that they're going to cause the environment. And yeah.
Do you have a background or an interest in philosophy in general?
No, I do not have a background in philosophy. And oftentimes when I try to read philosophical text, I get pretty bored.
Yeah.
So yeah, not really that into philosophy that much.
What and or whom have been your strongest antinatalist influences so far?
Honestly, I think just really life experiences and just reading a lot of books and watching a lot of documentaries and thinking about my own personal experiences and the experiences of people I know. It's really just the world at large that's been my biggest influence, not any antinatalists in particular.
Okay.
I mean, I have read David Banatar's book, Better to Have Never Been, but it didn't really influence me in any kind of way.
Yeah.
I just kind of read it out of curiosity, but it didn't really make me think of things that I hadn't thought of before or anything. So I would just say like myself and the world at large.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you actively still read other antinatalist books? Do you watch a lot of antinatalist videos? I mean, how when you're do you actively engage with a lot of the the things produced around the subject?
Not really. I
Yeah,
have read a few anti-natalist books besides David Benatar's book, and I haven't really liked any of them. Uh,
yeah,
there's been they've all had a little bit that I found interesting, but oftentimes it's very boring.
yeah,
There was one book called Cradle to the Grave,
yeah.
and
By
she
Sarah Perry.
went a lot into suicide and like all the emergency visits from people who have tried to kill themselves, and talking about suicide prohibition, all that. I did find that very valuable.
Hmm.
That definitely raised some awareness about some stuff for me, because I don't think I had thought about that before. Like I have realized that, like, a lot of people try to take their lives,
Yeah,
but I don't know if I realized that the failure rate was so high
yeah,
and that so many hospital visits occur each year because people try to kill themselves and it didn't go as planned. And
yeah.
then as far as videos, every now and then I find a video on YouTube that I like. I really like this guy. I find him fascinating. Sean Goley, or I'm not sure how he's
Yeah.
pronounced.
I'm not
I'm
sure how
sure.
either, but he's very interesting. Yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
channel.
he's cool. I like how he's just real and raw. And he had an anti-natalist rap, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um, and then I just like how he talks shit on life and bringing
yeah,
people into existence. And I really appreciate that authenticity and putting himself out there like that, because it's something I really value about myself and other individuals who I find who seem to be uh, living authentically and just being themselves. Because I've always thought my whole life, what's the point of living if you can't be yourself?
right.
So I definitely admire that about him, and I would love to meet him one day. But besides that, I'm not really into a whole lot in the anti-natalist world. I pretty much just like have my own thing going on, and I'm just constantly building on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's phenomenal, though. I mean, just out of curiosity, do you, especially since you've begun Stop Having Kids, do you engage with the larger antinatalist community on the internet more now, or at all, really, or you pretty much just stay separate?
Yeah, I'm pretty much just separate. I've met some anti-natalists just being out on the streets and doing outreach demonstrations.
Okay, interesting.
And then all my personal relationships with people, like my two partners, I'm in 2 long distance relationships, one in the United States and one in Canada,
Okay,
and they're both super anti-natalist.
awesome.
And then I think I don't really have very many friends, but all my friends are anti-natalist. And so as far as like interacting with people on social media and stuff, I don't really do much of that at all. Sometimes I tell myself, I probably should like go onto the Reddit anti-natalism more, but I don't know. I just like have so many things going on, and I just don't feel like doing that most of the time. I don't feel like I'm missing out on very much. So
Yeah, no, I think I totally hear you, and I find that fascinating about what you're doing, and I'll definitely ask more about that later on down the road, because I do find that aspect of what you're doing really just really interesting from my perspective. I'm curious, how does your antinatalism intersect with other social and ethical issues for you, such as atheism, veganism, and the right to die?
well, I'm not atheist. I identified as atheist for probably most of my life. Uh, I mean, I was raised to be Jewish and to go to synagogue and like get the bar mitzvah. And I think from the time I was about 5 years old, I didn't believe in God or like organized religion. Because like I said, I grew up Jewish, and I was taught that like Jewish people in America are kind of more of a minority. Like the bigger religions are like Christianity and Catholicism. So I was thinking, well, if those are the more popular religions, then I mean, wouldn't that be like the right one? And then one day in synagogue, when I was very young, there were some people from a church who came in and spoke, and I don't remember what they said, but it just sounded so irrational. And I already thought everything that I was hearing in this Reformed Jewish synagogue was irrational and didn't make any sense and was like wishful thinking kind of stuff. So at that point, I was just like, nah, this is all just a bunch of junk. And then, yeah, usually if people ask me about religion, I identify as anti-theist, like I'm against religion.
Yeah.
There's some, I think religion causes so much harm, and I'm not for any kind of lies and just believing in stuff just because it makes you feel good or because it gives you some kind of hope. Like, I think everything should be as fact-based and evidence-based as possible.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think it was having my own kind of psychedelic experiences and reading about others, and then just some other kinds of experiences I've had. And then also most recently watching the documentary series on Netflix, which I highly recommend to everyone, especially if you consider yourself an atheist, but really everyone anyway. It's called Surviving Death. And yeah, reincarnation is something I used to not believe in. And then, yeah, something a couple of years ago made me think, well, maybe it is a thing. I don't want it to be a thing. Like, I definitely do not want to be reincarnated, but yeah, this documentary series, Surviving Death, definitely sold me on reincarnation. Like, you hear some of these kids answer these like 50 to 60 questions about things there's no way they would be able to know if they weren't this person in another life. And they're answering these complex questions, these very open-ended questions, just right after they're asked. So I definitely believe in reincarnation. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say that everyone is going to be reincarnated. And like I said, I do not want to be, but I think there's a lot out there that we can't perceive and we can't understand. So yeah, and I don't believe in any kind of specific God, but I'm just open to the possibility that there's, something out there that we just don't know about. But as far as the other stuff that you mentioned, veganism, yeah, I've been vegan for almost 4,000 days of my life, because a little over 10 years.
Awesome.
And yeah, I think veganism and antinatalism are really one and the same, because they're both rooted in practical harm reduction and non-exploitation and boycotting cruelty. And when you have a child, you're opening them up to exploitation and to cruelty and to passing exploitation and cruelty onto others and to the earth. And yeah, so whether you grow up vegan or not, whether you become vegan or not, we cause so much harm to the planet and to other animals. And veganism, we're always talking about alternatives. So like, if you want milk with your cereal, you don't use calf nourishment, you use quote unquote milk made from plants, so like oats or cashews or almonds or whatever else. And then if you're really into the look of leather and you want leather shoes, instead of wearing cow skin, you wear a leather made from pineapples or all kinds of other stuff that you can make leather kind of looking things from. And then yeah, same thing with childbearing. If you want kids, I think it goes against the principles of veganism to have kids for the reasons why I already explained. Yeah. So you can help kids that already exist, and there's so many of them. And I just don't get vegans who have kids, because there's no guarantee. Like, every kid is a total gamble, no matter how they were raised. I've met multiple people who own these amazing farm sanctuaries where they have all these animals who have been rescued, and now they're living out their lives free from exploitation, getting the necessary veterinary care, receiving kindness and love, and they're in a trusting environment, and they're able to just be themselves and make friends with the other animals that they're surrounded by, including the humans. And some of these people some of these sanctuary owners who have had kids who grow up in this kind of environment don't even become vegan.
Right, exactly.
And I think that speaks volumes. But yeah, I'm a big proponent of just combining the two words, veganism and antinatalism.
Yeah.
So I really like saying vegantinatalism. And there's a page on Stop Having Kids called Why Vegantinatalism, and explains the intersection of veganism and antinatalism and how they're really one and the same, and how if someone is antinatalist because of the ethical reasons, and if someone's vegan because of the ethical reasons, why are the antinatalists not vegan, and why are the vegans not antinatalists?
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that specifically, because I do think it's really interesting that you've designated that as vegan antinatalism as essentially its own school of antinatal thought. And I've heard that term a lot over the last couple of years. It's become more and more prominent. Do you actually have any idea where the origin of that term is from? Because I honestly don't know.
Vegantinatalism?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not the first person to ever put the word out there.
Yeah.
But I did just like think of it one day, and then I'm pretty sure I like typed it on the computer, and yeah, there was something out there that already said vegantinatalism.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just came to, yeah, I mean, it just came to me, but I didn't find it elsewhere, and I'm not like the first person to put it out there. It's amazing to me how vegans just think that they're so special just for being vegan. Like, we shouldn't even need the word vegan, because it's just basic decency. It's just like, we shouldn't have a word like for someone who doesn't rape.
Yeah.
We shouldn't necessarily need a word for people who don't exploit animals, but we have to have a word because so many people do. And
so much of the antinatalist community is not vegan. I mean, it's a pretty large percentage. I mean, I would say a lot of the more active people are vegan. I've noticed that, like people that actually create antinatalist content, mostly vegans.
I was just going to say, you could say the same thing about the vegan community, because anyone can call themselves vegan.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, if you really ask, if you really look at what vegans are doing and you ask them questions, a lot of them are not really following vegan principles.
Right.
So yeah, it's a mess. And, being vegan, we still do so many harmful things. I mean, vegans still, drive cars and buy clothes and use paper and plastic and fly. And, there's just so many things. So yeah, you could be contributing to less harm than if you were not vegan. But like, for example, the food system doesn't operate by supply and demand. It's all just about profit. So there's actually way more that's produced than what's demanded for. Yeah. So us like boycotting eating animals, we are not complicit with the animals being killed, except, well, in the way that we are with our tax dollars. But yeah, I mean, us being vegan, we're not actually helping animals in any way. But one thing you could do is help already existing animals if you want to help animals. And having kids is not the way to do that, because it's the most environmentally destructive thing that you can do. And like I said before about these people who have sanctuaries who had kids and their kids exploit animals, like you're taking that risk. And there's so much evidence. There's so many people online who have even said, like, yeah, I raised my kid vegan and they don't care. And they go to these birthday parties and I've explained dairy to them a million times and they still want to eat the cake. And yeah, they just don't care. And at the end of the day, most humans just don't care about very much at all, if anything at all. And then you also asked about the intersection with the pro right to die.
Yeah.
I kind of have to take it one step at a time with the website. There's so much, and I'm still polishing so much of what's already been published for a while.
Yeah.
But this is something that I will be including on the website in the future. I can't give you a timeline of when it's going to happen, but I'm going to have a section on the website called Peaceful Goodbyes. And it's just another way to say like death with dignity or
fantastic
pro right to die, but I'm going to call it Peaceful Goodbyes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we we do not ask to come into existence. As far as I know, I do not think I came into existence. I'm sure you don't think you asked to come into existence.
Right.
And we should have the right to end our life when we want, for whatever reasons we want. I mean, I think just for example, if there's like, a 12-year-old girl and she breaks up with her boyfriend and she wants to kill herself because she's like so heartbroken by the breakup, like, I'm not saying like she shouldn't be able to take her life, but maybe like have some talking with her, maybe go see a therapist for a little bit first and then decide. But people like us, who adults who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, etc. Most of us, if we wanted to take our life, we probably have a lot more reasons, and we've had a lot more time to actually consider this life path, or end of life path, I should say. And yeah, I think it should be a right for all of us. I think euthanasia should be readily available. I'm not really sure exactly what that would look like, but at the very least, we should just be getting the conversation started now, and we can kind of work on all the details over time. Like I said, there could be some kind of intervention where I don't think we should be forced to keep existing, but
yeah, exactly.
But maybe we should, in some cases, like question if this is something like we really want to do.
Sure.
And yeah, I think this world could be so much better if we could really just embrace everyone's right to die, and if we could just let people know, like, hey, I think next Thursday I'm gonna do this. Like, how about we get together before Thursday and do things that we love doing together and just have like a good time. And that way they don't find out after you died that you like shot yourself or something and you never got that closure. And it's just, I've never dealt with it personally. I've never known anyone personally who killed themselves. I mean, I haven't known anyone personally. But I'm very open to the idea that one or both my partners may kill themselves one day, or other people I know, and I'm not against that. And I would love to know that these people that I care about like aren't suffering anymore in this world. And as much as I love both my partners, I wish they were never born, because then they wouldn't have had to suffer through this world. And they're exhausted by this life. It's just like getting increasingly worse, increasingly unbearable. And they're alive for the same reasons that I am, because we're just trying to bring some change to the world and, help make it a little bit better in some different regards. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this life just feels like a joke.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered that question well.
You answered it beautifully, and I'm really excited to see that part of the website when you do put that section up. I love the name of it. Final Goodbyes. Was that correct?
Peaceful Goodbyes.
Peaceful Goodbyes. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. And I think this is, again, we'll talk about it later on, but I think there's so many subjects, for which antinatalism is sort of that next step in the conversation. And the right to die, I think, is one of those where, it's there's such a connection there, between right to die activism and antinatalist activism.
When I have these conversations with people about the right to die, and I've had these conversations a lot.
Yeah.
And people always agree. I've never heard, I mean, obviously there's 8 billion people in the world, so there's definitely going to be people who are against this, but in my personal experience talking about this subject with people, they agree.
Yeah.
And I think all this kind of stuff, anti-natalism, pro-right to die, veganism, all this stuff we've been talking about so far, it's all like, this stuff, people should have been having conversations about this stuff way before we were even born.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's a depressing part of it.
Exactly. It's really sad that this is all coming up so late in the world, like when the world's really rapidly falling apart right now.
Yeah.
I wish this is stuff that I could have heard about when I was bored at home as a kid and I didn't know what to do with my free time. I wish I would have discovered stuff like this.
Absolutely. I feel exactly the same way, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, as you know, anti-procreation is sometimes broken up into 4 general schools of thought. There's anti-natalism, there's effilism, there's vehement, the voluntary human extinction movement, and child-free. Do you have any thoughts about each of those?
Yeah, so with child-free, I think that's a completely valid way to live. No one has to have kids. It's just a biological ability. That's it. And for me, I've never, for 1 second in my entire existence, ever wanted kids, ever saw myself with kids, ever wanted to be a father, be married. And that has never changed. And I've always seen having kids as a choice, as an option. And I was shocked to discover within, I don't know when I finally realized this, I guess within the last couple or few years, that most people think that they like have to have kids, that they have to be in a marriage and have kids. And that's just life. That's just what you got to do. It's just like, you got to follow the stories that have been passed down to us. And
Right.
yeah, I really wish more people could just understand that, like, you don't have to have kids, and it's not in your best interest. It's not in the kid's best interest. It's not in everyone who's alive right now's best interest or the environment. So yeah, I think that's another thing that we really need to kind of normalize and spread. And yeah, there's just, I think most people don't even have the adequate qualities and capacity to care for other life.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we all have our limits. So I think, you know, some people could maybe handle like a cat or a dog or a chicken or multiples of those. You know, some temporary, some permanently for those other individuals, their whole life. For me, my limits are, I would say my limits are just like, you know, fostering for like a little bit of time. But I personally don't really even want to do that right now. I just fostered a dog last year, and that was a big struggle for me. And I only did it because of COVID and everything like slowed down. So I had a lot more free time. So I was like, oh, I'll see about fostering a dog. And that ended up being a lot bigger handful than I anticipated. And yeah, I think people really need to question, really do some self-examination and really figure out what they can do. And for me, I'd rather like, you know, make food and go distribute it to houseless people or really anyone for that matter, anyone who's hungry and wants to take some food. I'd rather donate money. I'd rather go volunteer at a sanctuary. Like those are all things that I can do. So we all have to look at ourselves as individuals and see what's within our means. But for me, like, yeah, I have trouble caring for myself sometimes. Like
I do too.
It's hard, and I really struggle with balance. Like I've been an overworker for so many years in a row, and almost every time I get sick, which isn't very often, but it's usually kind of bad when I do. And when I get sick, I'm pretty sure it's almost always from overworking. And it's just the same struggle constantly. I just cannot like get a balance.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have kids so blindly, and they don't do any kind of examination, and they don't question, do I really have what it takes to adequately care for someone else? And
100%.
Yeah, and you can't ever know anyway, because you don't know what your kid's going to be born with or what they're going to develop later in life, what's going to happen to them. And this whole, like, you're on your own after you're 18, that's total bullshit. Like if you bring a kid into existence, you should be their safety net for their whole life. Like if I needed financial help with something or whatever else, I'm in my 30s, but I have nothing against like reaching out to my parents for help. Like I'm only any kind of hardship I'm only in that position because of them, because they brought me into existence.
Yeah, it's just the truth.
Yeah. So people need to think about that too. Like people need to realize that any kind of harm their kid causes, not that most people like are realistic about harming the world anyway, or even care about the harm they cause or others cause unless it's to them directly.
Yeah.
But they need to realize that there's a degree of responsibility on them too, because people are only in the positions to cause harm because their parents shot them into the world, or their procreators shot them into the world. And then, as far as voluntary human extinction movement, I'm not super familiar with everything they have going on. I don't really know if they have much like active stuff going on, but I just that voluntary human extinction. So you're just like not going to have kids. You're just going to be part of like just kind of let's get out of here peacefully, in a peaceful way, by not having kids. But I don't think, like, whether we're talking about stop having kids or voluntary human extinction movement, or if anything else ever develops in the future, we're always going to be a small group of humans. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you just look at all the world that's religious and how much religion pushes people to keep pumping out kids, and religion's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And we can see from the United States and from all over the world, it doesn't matter how bad people's situation gets, they'll still keep having kids. So stop having kids is never going to achieve a stop to having kids. And that's not our goal anyway, because I don't want to have unrealistic goals. Voluntary human extinction movement, they're never going to achieve a world where all humans volunteer to stop having kids and we just like embrace our extinction. But it's good. Even though we can't reach everyone, nothing can reach everyone. So we should still be putting these ideas out there anyway. Right. And normalizing this stuff, normalizing the idea of not having kids and not continuing our species. Like, people are so egotistical and they have such a warped idea of humanity. And I get into these conversations with people all the time when I'm doing outreach demonstrations, and they see no more humans as the end of the world. They think the whole world is just us and can't exist without us. And it's really sad that people think we're that special. We're just another animal species, and we're the most invasive species, not only on the planet right now, but we have to be the most invasive species from the whole history of the planet. So out of billions of species who have ever existed, and it's not certainly not something I'm proud of. And
right, of course.
Yeah. So you asked about voluntary human extinction movement, child free. What were the other ones?
Ethilism and antinatalism.
Okay. Ethilism. I don't identify as an ethicist myself. I'm not really much into interfering with free living beings, unless it's to help them. But when I say help, I mean like if you see, these are just like examples off the top of my head. If you see like a deer with like, I don't know, like an injured limb or something, if there's something you can do to help them, or you see, an animal not able to get to water, we're not able to get to like safe, clean water, then, maybe help them with some water. But I'm totally against like, breeding animals to keep their numbers going, like what they do in zoos. And
sure, of course.
And I'm not like, I don't think a species going extinct is necessarily like the worst thing in the world. Because other animals, suffer too. And individuals, for those species not coming into existence, that's not necessarily like a horrible thing. But, if you are someone who does want to rapidly see other animals go extinct, because that's, less suffering in the world. That's already going on. I don't know the numbers, but I think humans are causing around 200 plant and animal species to go extinct every day. And I would think that number is just going to keep increasing. We're already, we're already doing that really well.
Doing it really horribly.
Yeah, doing it really horribly. Like, I'm totally against it. I mean, the devastation we're causing to the planet and its inhabitants is really ugly and tragic. But it's out of like regular people like you and me. It's pretty much out of our control. We're pretty powerless. And if we ever did become like a big enough threat to, any of these, governments or corporations or anything that are like really rapidly, destroying this planet, they would just kill us, So, yeah, I really wish that whole like red button question, if you could just push the red button and just end all life instantly without like any kind of pain or any kind of suffering. I'm not necessarily against that. Of course, it's like a hypothetical. As far as I know, we'll never have that red button. And if we did, it wouldn't just be like some instant painless thing, because it would be invented by humans, and humans always make things worse than they have to be. But the idea of there being no life, like not even just on planet Earth, but in the whole universe. I don't know if there's any other life like in the universe, but it's possible. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, why does life have to exist?
Right.
Well, with all that being said, I still don't identify as an ethicist, but yeah, I don't think that life has to exist.
Yeah.
And then for anti-natalism, what was this in reference to? Like, what about anti-natalism?
Just that antinatalism is like, it's a blanket term. It's like the umbrella term for all of these different forms of anti-procreation, but in a sense, it's its own category as well. That's sort of distinct, from its own, depending on who you ask, it's sort of distinct from all these other sort of subsections.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think anti-natalism is really important and something we should all be embracing. We have the power to discuss this kind of thing and understand it if we can like be honest and rational.
Right.
And I think we should embrace it. And I think other animals are way more complex and advanced than we give them credit for, far more conscious and aware than humans typically give them credit for, because humans like to believe we're just like so above everything else, and we have all these kinds of qualities and capacities that others don't have. But as far as I know, we are the only species who can really discuss anti-natalism, who can discuss maybe we should stop having kids because of blah, 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 blah. I don't know if other species are, of course they have their own languages and they are communicating with each other, but I don't know if any of them are communicating on that level. Like, hey, there's no food here. We can't find any more water resources. We're surrounded by all these other dangerous beings. Maybe we should stop bringing others into this existence. So I don't know that they're having those conversations, but we can. So I think we should definitely take advantage of that and use that to the best of our ability. With that being said, I do think that other animals can perceive like this isn't a life someone should be brought into. Like, for example, years ago, I read a story about a dolphin at a marine park where they're enslaved and they're performing these shows every day, and they're living in basically like a big bathtub. And of course they force breed them so they can keep having more individuals to profit off of and to sell to traffic and sell to other marine parks and so forth. And there was this dolphin who killed her baby. And I'm just like, I can't talk to that dolphin and find out for sure what happened, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and believe that they did it so that baby wouldn't have to suffer like they did. I think dolphins are probably a lot more intelligent than we are, and I think they can definitely have thoughts like that. And I think that's what happened. So it's like really interesting when you think about it, because we are animals, and that's not something I ever forget, but a lot of people do. A lot of people forget that, and a lot of people also just deny it. A lot of people think it's an insult to to call a human an animal. Actually, we use it as an insult, you know?
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I'm anti-natalist, because like humans are just so in denial about everything, and they can't even embrace their basic nature, just like what we are, who we are, where we came from, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, yeah, what kind of world is this to bring someone into when everything's just been so like artificialized, and you have to like, you know, if you want to feel like you fit in, you belong with others and everything, you have to like subscribe to all these just ridiculous beliefs that just continue to go unquestioned, you know? Yeah,
Exactly.
hopefully that answered it all well. Those are
that was beautiful. Thank you so much for your thoughts on all of that. That was great. So now I'd like to talk to you all about Stop Having Kids. Dietz, from what I understand, Stop Having Kids launched originally in March 2021, which is really extraordinary to consider just how young an initiative this is and how well it's done already. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the first time I heard about Stop Having Kids was through the activism of Isaac Nickerson, who seems to be a really awesome activist in his own right. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about his involvement in a bit. What can you tell me about how Start Having Kids first began?
Well, yeah, so it technically began in June of 2020 because you know, we had to wear a face mask everywhere we went. And I figured, okay, well, if I'm going to wear this thing on my face everywhere I go, I would like to have a message on it. So there's someone who does custom masks, like you just tell them what you want written on it and they'll make it. So I just said, hey, I want a mask that says Stop Having Kids. And that's all it was going to be, just this personal mask for myself.
Wow.
And I just couldn't believe what happened after I started wearing it. Like, I wore it everywhere. And so often I would get into conversations with people. People would be like, I agree with that. I love your mask. Sometimes people would ask me questions like, what do you mean by Stop Having Kids? And sometimes people would be like, oh, is that about overpopulation? And it was just such a huge conversation starter. And I wasn't getting into any kind of negative interactions at all.
Wow.
So yeah, after I was wearing that for a bit, I was like, wow, this could be a thing. You know, making something called Stop Having Kids and just turning it into like a movement. That's what I thought of. Like, I could make a movement out of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just stuck with just the face mask for a while, and it was late 2020, and I have a friend who's a tattoo artist, and he basically made me a tattoo that looks a lot like the Stop Having Kids logo. It's just like, you know how the O has the baby, like the line through them. He made me a tattoo like that. And I asked him if he would make, I told him like, I want to make this whole thing called Stop Having Kids. And I asked if he would make the logo. He was down to do it. I got the domain. I was actually originally going to get stophavingkids.com, and it was taken. It's not anything. Like, if you go to stophavingkids.com, there's no website. So I think someone just like bought it and they, as an investment to sell to someone later on. But anyway, I went with org, and org was actually even more fitting. So, and my life was fairly unstable at the time. I started to have more stability in late last year. And that's when I started going hard on the website. I started building the website, but I went hard on it. I still go hard on it to this day. I work on it in at least some aspect almost every single day.
Amazing.
And then, I decided to launch it in March. Originally, I wanted to launch it in January, and then I was like, no, it's not even close to ready yet. February, I'm still not even close to ready yet. March, technically not ready yet, but it was good enough. And I didn't want to just keep waiting and waiting. And I was like, I knew that at the level that it was at that point, that it could still have like a big impact and be effective for what it needs to be effective in. So it's like, okay, I'll launch it in March and I'll just keep working on it. So that's what I'm doing. Like, as I said, I'm going to be making that peaceful goodbyes section. I'm making a section called Why Foster and Adopt. And I'm going to be making a section Why Overpopulation is Real. And there's so many other sections. And then a lot of the stuff that I already have written on there, I need to kind of go back and polish and expand upon. And then I have sections that I just haven't even started yet, like the climate change and human slavery and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, I knew it was going to become a movement. I mean, that was my goal. I didn't want it to be just become like some little thing that just a little bit of people know about. And, someone wears a shirt here and there. Like, I wanted this to get as big as possible. I'm extremely passionate about this subject. And after being vegan for so long, and, when you get someone to go vegan, it doesn't really change anything for the world. But if he can inspire people to not have kids, there's so many other directions like stop having kids can take. That can really do some good.
Absolutely.
So,
it's saving somebody from having to live an entire existence. That's a huge thing to prevent.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many other examples I could give you. Like for one thing, something I like to really hit on the website is Parenthood Regret. So I have a really good section about that, and really trying to get people to embrace talking about that, no matter how stigmatized it is, no matter how unpopular it is to talk about that, because it's so common. It's probably in the top 5 biggest, most common regrets adult humans experience, having kids. And it's the least talked about out of all the regrets. And so many less kids would be being born, and so many people would not be losing their quality of life so bad if they were to like openly have these conversations.
Exactly.
And people could really think more into it before having kids. So that's like a really big thing. I did the first Stop Having Kids tabling event last Saturday at this vegan event. It was mostly vegan. Yeah, it was mostly vegan food, but I found out about the event, I think 2 or 3 days before it was starting. And I just emailed them to see if I could have a table there. And the husband and wife who put it on, they were all about it. They had never heard of Stop Having Kids before, but they checked it out.
That's amazing.
They were all about it. So they're like, yes, please have a table here. And it was crazy. It was the most popular table at the whole event. Not financially, but socially. Like there was a constant stream of people. I was having so many conversations, and it was all super positive. I didn't have one person say anything negative or try to argue against it. And this one woman really stuck out because she came up to the table and hung around for a little while, and she told me numerous times that every single one of her female friends who has had kids regrets having kids. Wow. And it's Parenthood Regret Parenthood Regret. For me, that kind of topic got started online. Like I would read articles about it and just people talking about it on maybe on like Reddit or something. I can't remember. And I just found that like really fascinating that it's such a major regret, but people aren't really talking about this. But since doing Stop Having Kids and all this street outreach, I'm seeing it left and right. Parents are coming up all the time and saying either directly or indirectly that they regret having kids. So it's crazy how common it is. So there's so many ways Stop Having Kids can bleed into society, into people's lives in like a really positive way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I didn't want to make it this like super simple thing. I wanted to make it like very multifaceted, very intersectional. I call it a collective liberation movement, and it's consistent anti-oppression. I don't know that there really is even another organization out there or another movement out there that's as consistent anti-oppression as Stop Having Kids. Because there's other things out there. There's stuff about like just some examples, stuff against like child abuse and rape and racism, but none of these things are getting to the core, and the core is producing kids. Because as long as more kids are coming into the world, we're going to have more racists and more rapists and more child abusers, or people who are going to be victim to these things. So by not addressing the root of it all, which is having kids, you're basically just doing your cause a disservice, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you are the sole founder of Stop Having Kids, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And is there any kind of core team now to stop having kids, like a core team of members? Is Isaac one of the core members?
No, he's
Okay.
the Isaac Nickerson is the Seattle, Washington organizer. So yeah, I don't know how regularly, but to some degree regularly goes out there and does a street outreach, like holding signs, and he has cards to give away to people, and just lots of meaningful conversations and so forth.
And so what he did in Seattle was a big inspiration to you. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I had made signs and stuff, and he got some signs printed and went out and did that. But he stepped foot on the streets and went out and did this before I did.
Okay.
But it was something I was planning on doing anyway. I just hadn't done it yet. He had a crew of people he could just go out and do this with in Seattle. I didn't have that privilege in Portland. I don't really know many people out here, and people who are willing to do that, or people who are actually willing to do it and follow through with it. So, and it was just like a couple weeks after he got started, I went out to Seattle a couple times and I joined them. And then when my partner came out to Portland and visited me, we did it almost every day for 2 weeks straight, going out and doing outreach. And as far as core team goes, and we can talk more about the outreach later, but as far as core team goes, because I know you had asked that, there is no core team. It's almost like a one-man band right now. I'm pretty much doing everything, but amazing. I have had a little bit of help here and there. Like, I have a friend who lives in Arizona, and she's helped to proofread a bunch of the different sections. And she's added in some of her own writing too. And she's a great writer. I think this thing that she worked on that sticks out the most from the website is the section called "My Kid Could Save the Planet." I think that's what it's called.
It's great.
Yeah. So I wrote that. I gave it to her to proofread, and she changed a lot of it, like to her own wording, and I think she she added some stuff, and she did like an absolutely amazing job with that. And she helped a lot with like the Parenthood Regret section and some other sections. And then Isaac has helped me proofread some of the sections. Someone else has helped me proofread a little bit. So that, as far as getting help, it's been mostly with like proofreading and assistance with writing.
Incredible.
And then I've been paying a couple artists for like the illustrations. But I would love one day to have a core team. That would be amazing. I'm certainly not against it. But as of right now, I'm doing pretty much all the stuff, and I don't have a team, but I would love to embrace having a team one day.
That's honest. That's incredible. Like, honestly, I did not expect that answer. Like, I thought you did have a core team, and the fact that you are doing so much of this all by your lonesome is just really impressive.
Yeah, like the photography is me. I'm constantly further developing the website. There's some like real technical custom website design stuff that I don't know how to do. So in that case, I reach out to a guy on Fiverr and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to like, this section is too high. Can you trim some of this away or whatever else? So make some adjustments for me. But I'm doing just about everything.
That's incredible. That's really, really inspiring. I love the website. I do have a bunch of questions about the website a little later on, but I think it's phenomenal, and I love the way that it's changed, over the last couple of months and all the stuff you've been adding to it. And I also love like the social media outreach part of it. And I particularly follow along with the Instagram. Mostly, but I mean, we're
good because that's what I put the most effort into.
I was gonna say, is that where you've generally had the most engagement? Is Instagram?
I'm not sure. The number one priority to me is the website. That's what I put most of my energy and focus into.
Right.
Of course, like the website has the most information, and when I'm out with the banner and the signs, that has a website on it, and I always have handout cards on me. So whenever people compliment my shirt, which is all the time, I always offer them a card. So I mean, most people just assume that it's a random shirt. They don't realize that there's like a whole movement and stuff behind it. So offer them a card so they can well, there's a lot of interesting text on the card, and then they can go to the website and find out more and spread it around. But yeah, so website is number one priority by far. After that is Instagram. After that is Facebook, and last is Twitter. So the Twitter's the weakest and has the lowest amount of followers. The Facebook has the highest amount of followers. And I do have someone who helps with the Facebook. Like she'll like I'll send her some stuff and she'll put some posts on there. She'll respond back to some people's messages. So me and her both working on the Facebook. I do the Instagram exclusively. She's starting to help now with the Twitter. It's just all that social media is just a little too much for me.
It's a time suck.
It's a time suck, and I just don't really like it. I find Instagram is the least off-putting to me out of the three major social medias that we're talking about. And there is a TikTok coming soon because the person I'm talking about who has helped with the Facebook and the Twitter, she really believes that Stop Having Kids should have a TikTok. TikTok is the biggest social media platform, I believe. And I was like, if you want to do that, if you want to run the Stop Having Kids TikTok, be my guest. Like, I'm all for it, but I'm not touching that. Like, I'm probably never going to have that app on my phone. I'm not getting into that. So yeah, I mean, she's a very busy person, so I have nothing against her not following through and not doing it. But I think she already did. Yeah, she actually already did start the page. I don't know if she's posted anything yet, but the YouTube is actually going to be launching probably today or tomorrow.
Excellent.
The channel's set up. It's just a matter of uploading the first video. But I think once that's uploaded, she'll probably share something to the TikTok. So yeah, I mean, I
have to say, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do have to say, I have my reservations about TikTok as well, but I think the strength of a lot of the video that's coming out of Stop Having Kids, like, I think it would be a mistake to not have a TikTok. I actually have to agree. And honestly, we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I mean, there are other people in the world doing like antinatalist street activism, and that's gone over very, very well on TikTok so far, like other examples of that. So I bet you anything you've got a big audience there, you know.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I sent you a couple of videos the other night just so you could have a little bit more insight. And
I love them.
Yeah, if you saw that video with that like really angry guy, I think that would do pretty well on TikTok. And there's going to continue to be more of that stuff. Unfortunately, I've had other cases like that guy too, but sometimes, you know, something amazing would happen. Amazing in terms of like, oh, this is great video footage to have and to share with the world. But my GoPro, which I have on me as like a body cam, it overheated a lot because a lot of the time when I was doing Stop Having Kids outreach, it would be like over 90 degrees and the GoPro was just overheating like crazy and it would shut off without me knowing. So there were quite a handful of situations that would have been great to have had documented, and it just didn't capture it. But I mean, this is something I'm doing very regularly. And it's, I think especially after the YouTube comes out, I think it's only going to continue to spread.
I know it. I think the strength of this footage is going to go far. I really, really do. And I do want to ask you more about that in a bit. I'm curious if you can tell me a little bit, like, sort of like the legal status, I'm not sure what else to call it, of Stop Having Kids. Like, are you registered as a company of any kind? Do you have any plans to move towards becoming an NGO at some point in the future?
Yeah, so right now I'm just transitioning to becoming an LLC. And in the future, I'd like to be a nonprofit or an NGO, but I'm just not sure, you know, what that looks like and when that'll happen. Obviously, it's quite a big process, not something you can just like fill out a form and just be changed all of a sudden. So yeah, it's a bit overwhelming, and I'm already constantly overwhelmed as it is. So I'm just trying to take it one step at a time.
The only way to do it, for sure.
Yeah. So just doing the best I can, of course. donations to Stop Having Kids are extremely important and essential. And I know I would be getting a lot more donations if I were like a nonprofit, because people could get those tax deductions.
Sure. I think the videos are going to help that a lot. I really, just in my opinion, I think that's, but anyway, I will put the link to where you can donate to Stop Having Kids below, as well as the Patreon. So everybody please go check that out for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about, this phenomenal street activism that you guys are doing in more detail. I wanted to say that, you guys are so much more brave than so much of the antinatalist community is. And it's just so refreshing to see. It's exceedingly rare for people to be brave enough to talk to anybody in public about antinatalism. So it's incredible to watch you guys do this.
This has to be part of normalizing it.
Right. Exactly. And so, I think that, you're not only exposing, people who aren't antinatalists to this subject, but you're also doing an important service to antinatalists that already exist, in showing them what's possible, because antinatalist activism in general is still very, very new. It's kind of uncharted territory.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Trying to make sure Stop Having Kids is really the vanguard, really the forefront of the antinatalist movement, and like just maximizing that as much as possible, and really trying to inspire other people to get active too, because it's not enough to, most people are not having these conversations at all in any kind of degree. Right. And I'm just trying to maximize that, show how much you can do. Right. That outreach has been so amazing. It's so opposite of what most people would think. I haven't traveled the world and done this everywhere, and I don't even think this would be possible in much of the world. Like, for example, China, the world's biggest population. At the moment, India is going to overtake that, but I don't even think you could do this in China. So
China, probably not. But there's a lot of antinatalism in India. A lot.
Yeah, exactly. So I think people could definitely try this in India, and there have been some people who have reached out and they say they want to start this there. So I hope that'll kick off in the coming months. But the outreach has been absolutely incredible, and it's been so refreshing for my own life as well. Every time I do it, and I've done lots and lots of vegan specific outreach before. Like last year, for example, something I did a few times was I was trying to inspire a dairy-based ice cream place in Minneapolis to go completely plant-based. They already have plant-based options, which people really loved. But just change the milk, and instead of using animal milk, use plant milk. So me and some people, we stood in front of this place on a handful of occasions with what I thought were pretty powerful signs, but people didn't care. They were completely apathetic, and saw very, very few people actually cared. Didn't really have many meaningful conversations, and it was very draining. You just go home feeling really depressed and drained. Yeah. And I gotta say, this anti-natalism activism, obviously it's about more than just anti-natalism, but to put it in simplest terms, it's been the total opposite. Every time you're having so many meaningful conversations, or at least I have in my experience, because I can't talk for everyone who's participated with Stop Having Kids so far. But so many amazing conversations, so much support. When I started Stop Having Kids, I had no idea what was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to be received. I didn't know how many people in the world would support something like this, but I got to tell you, it's been incredible. There's a couple exceptions, but as far as the main places where I've done it, so Portland, Seattle, other places in Oregon like Eugene and Bend, no exaggeration. I can't say what everyone's thinking and what everyone's feeling, but I can report on reactions that I can perceive. And it's 90% support in all these places. It's incredible. So many people agree with this stuff. So many people, they don't know what it's necessarily about in the beginning, but sometimes people, they're coming at it from overpopulation or the suffering aspect, or, you know, there's other things too. But then, yeah, when you have conversations with people and you can really tell them like what it's all about, it's amazing how many people agree with this. I've had a bunch of people give me donations, like out of their car, like they're stopped at a red light and we're just having like a little interaction and they're seeing the signs and they'll just hand me like a $20 bill or something. I've had someone come up to me and give me $50. This guy, I was just like at a crosswalk. We were just holding up some signs and a banner. A guy just walks across the street and says a little bit of words to me and hands me a $50 bill. It's amazing, the support. So many people waving from their cars, friendly honks, tons of support from parents, even parents who are with their kids.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, a few of the times that I've done this in Seattle, it's right across the street from an aquarium, which, by the way, fuck aquariums, but it's in between like an aquarium and this very touristy spot called Pike's Place Market. And there's like just a constant huge rush of people crossing the street. So, and then also people driving by that are seeing the stuff too. And it's amazing like how few people actually like come up and say nasty shit. And some of the people who do come up really angry and hostile and defensive.
Yeah.
If they're willing to actually let you talk and they're willing to actually listen to the words that you're saying, oftentimes, and I'm not exaggerating, oftentimes, most of the time, they end up actually appreciating what we're doing and agreeing with what we're saying and why we're there. It's the people who rush to assumptions and beliefs and who tell us what we're doing without actually finding out what we're doing. Those people are very problematic.
Yeah.
And, you know, people just like living in denial and stuff. But the amount of, I've met so many interesting people doing this, and it's not even just doing the outreach. It's also just going out wearing Stop Having Kids stuff. Like almost every time I do it, people comment on it, and it's positive over 99% of the time, because I think that for every person who says something negative to me when I'm wearing the Stop Having Kids, there's over 100 people who say something positive. It's constant.
It's incredible.
I've gone into stores where it's like smaller stores and it's just 5 employees and every single employee is like all about it. I've gone into a store. It takes me a while to get out of places sometimes, because like you walk into a store and you run into customers who are all about, who ask you about it, or they're all about it from the start. And then you get into these conversations, and then you get to the register and the cashier's all about it. And then you go to watch your car in the parking lot, and someone who's walking into the store sees you, and then they say something, you get into a conversation with them. So it's amazing how often sometimes I do something that's supposed to take like 5 or 10 minutes and it ends up taking me like 45 minutes or an hour, because I'm having like all these interactions with people. And I had no idea that so many people were all about this, or that they were thinking this. They're not, you know, all about it in terms of like, you know, getting this message out there and talking about this with other people. But it's not, I've met a lot of people who say, me and my partner, we're always talking about this, but we don't know anyone else who is. So I let people know there's actually like a lot of us out there. But there's been so many surprises. Like when we did it in Minneapolis, which is where my partner lives, she had the experience with me in Portland, where we did it for almost every day for 2 weeks straight, and it was super positive. But she was nervous about doing it in Minneapolis. She was willing to do it out there, but she was definitely nervous. She was worried about how people were going to receive it. And honestly, we were both, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say I was shocked, because I didn't have expectations, but yeah, I was shocked to a degree how well supported it was out there. Like it might have even been more supported than Portland and Seattle. And I didn't think you could get better than that. And like one thing that really surprised me was Muslim women. Some of the people who are the most like ecstatic about Stop Having Kids were Muslim women. Just, it's a very, they have a pretty large Muslim population. Yeah. Minneapolis is very diverse. Unlike Portland. Portland's predominantly white, unfortunately. But we were just seeing one Muslim woman after another, just super like amped about this message. And I would have never, ever, ever guessed that would happen. We didn't see the same thing with Muslim men per se, but definitely Muslim women.
Yeah, I mean, I actually am not terribly surprised by that, just because I know there's a huge population of ex-Muslims that are antinatalist, and there's some of the biggest antinatalist communities online, at least, are from countries that are predominantly Muslim, or Arabic speaking, Egypt, different places like that. So it's not a huge surprise, but it's still just because I've seen evidence of it, but it is a huge surprise. Like, I remember when I initially saw evidence of that, I found it absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. But yeah, I have to say, in my own experience of talking to people about antinatalism, it just ignites people. It's this, again, whether they've been thinking about it in other parts of their life in the past or not, it's something very, in this world where it seems like everything is constantly regurgitated and there's sort of nothing new, and people get a little jaded about, there not being anything sort of new to think about. Antinatalism is this this unicorn thought for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think.
It really makes
it just shocks them, but in a very positive way.
Yeah, and especially when they realize that you don't want there to be no more humans being born, because just fuck humans, and it's rooted in ethics.
Yeah.
The amount of people I've made smile,
yeah,
really big, genuine smiles, and you see their faces light up.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So many people. Sometimes you get, when we're doing this, we have 5 or 6 cars in a row that are waving at us, giving us a thumbs up, doing the friendly honks. Last night, I did this in Portland last night, and there were at one time there was 4 cars in a row that were doing that.
Wow, incredible!
And one of my favorites is when someone comes up and they're actually being really nasty and they're just totally against it, and they assume that other people think the way they do. And while they're talking shit to us, all these people are coming by and being like, fuck yeah, and honking and waving and be like, I love you and thanks for doing this. And I love that.
Well, I think part of it is that you guys are using a very effective approach. And there's almost sort of a magic word kind of quality to some of what you're saying, that simple phrase of, let's take care of what's already here. The life.
Yeah, let's help already existing life.
That I can see it. I can see it in these videos. People's, their minds open up hearing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple concept, but so many people haven't really considered it before.
People are dying to hear it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And met a lot of people who have worked in the foster care system, or they're from the foster care system.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, something like this is so needed. So many people have said something like this is so needed.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm not trying to boast or talk myself up or anything, but I genuinely, and I'm a super honest person, I would never say something if I didn't mean it. I really feel like I cracked some kind of code with this.
I think you did. I think you have. I think I was going to say this much later on, but I think you've kind of happened upon a formula for engaging with a more general public around this subject that the rest of us have kind of not been able to hit on. Because the next question I was going to ask you, and I think this just follows into what we're saying, is the last 3 years and before that too, there is a history of antinatalist street activism. There's the Church of Euthanasia, which I think does fit under that to a large degree. There's also Danny Shine in the UK. But these are, and I love Chris Korda and I love Danny Shine, but they are more aggressive techniques. Danny Shine has a megaphone, and it's it's just it's great, and he's the one whose video doing that kind of antinatalist activism on the street went viral on TikTok. So it definitely still has a lot of power to it, and people engage with it. But the way that you're interacting with the public has a completely different tone to it.
Yeah, my goal, I'm trying to make stuff that I'm trying to put messages out there and make this all in a way that people can't talk shit about it and people can't argue against it. And of course people can talk all the shit they want. They can argue against stuff all they want, but I'm trying to make it as impossible to do that as possible. if that makes any sense.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's going so well. So yeah, last week I had that tabling at the vegan event, and the night before there was a big free music festival in Portland called Cathedral Park Jazz Festival. Okay. And from what I read on the website, it says it's the biggest jazz music festival west of Mississippi. And so had no idea what to expect. I knew there were going to be tons of families there, like parents with kids. Yeah. Because it did state on the website that's a very family-friendly event. And yeah, we pulled up. It was just me and one person. I was with a transgender girl. Yep. And I saw that there were so many people, and I had no idea how it was going to go because I mean, I've done a lot where there's a lot of, families and kids, but also I haven't run into many situations generally speaking with people like, being super negative and getting super hostile to me. It does happen sometimes, but all the worst situations that I've experienced have been in Portland. So I was like, okay, like how is this going to go? And we just set up on this one corner that it was pretty much like the biggest hotspot we could have chosen from the whole event. I mean, we're right next to where all the porta potties are. So you have about 15 porta potties, and there's a constant big line of people waiting for porta potties. And then behind the porta potties, there's all the food venues. So you got the people coming for food, leaving from getting food. Yeah. And they're all walking by us. They're all seeing us. I mean, I'm holding a big banner, and my friend Stephanie is holding a sign. And I'm not exaggerating, almost from the second we set up, I always bring a giveaway box. So I give away like free food and other essentials. Like I had sanitizer and sunscreen, and I was giving away free Stop Having Kids face masks. Yeah. So just set that up in front of us. We were holding our stuff. And I think the very first person to come up was a mom who had 3 kids, and she was all about it. Wow. And she was like asking how she can donate. And then we were there for 1.5 to 2 hours, and we probably had about 3 to 5 minutes total where we just weren't talking to anyone at all. Mm-hmm. It was just constant, and the only negative things that happened the whole time was there was someone who drove by, and I know he said something nasty. Like, I don't know what the words were, but I could just tell from his tone that he said something nasty, which is so common. If people can just like, just go by real quick on a bike or a car, they'll say something nasty, but people don't do it like to my face nearly as much. Right. So there was that. And then there was one guy who was basically saying that, we picked like the wrong event, like the wrong target. He's like, people here are only having like 1 or 2 kids. Obviously we're against any amount of kids, right, but also I said to him, like, how do you know? You ask everyone if they're only having 1 or 2 kids. And there was one guy who came up, and he was like, stop having kids, which that's happened a lot. Yeah. So I just started explaining to him, and I think within a minute of explaining, maybe even less than a minute, he pulled out his wallet and gave me a $20 bill. Wow. So it was just amazing. Like I wasn't expecting it to be like a horrible night where it's like so much negativity, because it's never been like that before anywhere I've done this. Right. But I was not expecting that much support, especially where there's parents and kids everywhere. And there was a dad. This was in the first 10 minutes too. Mm-hmm. He was with his daughter. She couldn't have been more than 10 or 11 years old, and he was all about it. And he had his daughter stand next to me in the banner, and he got a photo of us. Wow. And then in the sneak peek of the YouTube video that I sent you, the night before when I was doing outreach in Portland, as you see in the beginning of that video, there was a mom and her 3 daughters crossing the street. Yeah. And the mom is clapping, and she's like, can I get a photo with my daughters and you? Yeah. So, I mean, we are so supported by people from all walks of life, whether they're parents or not. It's amazing. People would not expect this. I really want people to realize, like, this is not, super negative, like always super negative reactions like you think. And of course, like if I pick certain areas of the country, I'm sure, there would be way less positivity. Like there's certain places I'm going to stay away from.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people have said, well, if you do it in this area, you'd probably get shot. That's technically possible any area you do it. It's probably more probable in certain areas. But what does that say, too, about the world that we live in? That, like, if you hold a sign that's harmless, that you could get shot.
It's funny. I mostly hear anti-natalists say that, that more than anybody. Like, I've been told so many times, like, oh, if you talked about this on television, you'd get yourself shot, or you talk about it at a school, you'd get yourself shot. And it's I do think that there is some truth to, again, like, yeah, sure, you say it in certain places. That unfortunately might be the case, and that is, as you're saying, the world we live in. But there's also just an enormous amount of catastrophizing, I think, sometimes about being open and honest about this subject. And it's not always what the reality really is, as I think you're proving. Yeah.
And people need to realize that this is a message that people from all walks of life can get on board with. Like, there's people from all kinds of walks of life who believe that people should not be having kids. Yeah. And
it's a message people desperately need to hear on top of it.
Number one thing people should be talking about.
Exactly. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the interactions that you had that I just thought was so phenomenal. And I just want you to know that I've watched this video so many times. And that was your incredible interaction with a woman by the name of Gabriella, who was a German-born woman who encountered you on the street. And she was so excited to meet you, so incredibly inspired by you. And she has this incredible line in the video that's on Instagram, saying, like, this is the first time I've seen anything this freaking positive out here in my whole life.
Yeah, and, I remember that.
And it's just an incredible video. So I'm curious if you've kept in contact with Gabriella at all. Has she become a regular supporter?
Not that I'm aware. That was in Seattle, Washington. So that's 3 hours from where I live, or actually, depending on the traffic situation, it can be more than 3 hours. But I only saw her that one day. I've only done this in Seattle probably, I think, 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
We were in the Pike's Place market area that day, and she lives right by there. So she was just like walking around, and she saw what we were doing, and she was like hardcore all about it. Yeah. And I gave her a mask and did that little interview with her, and she was just so excited. And she said it was the most positive thing she's ever seen. And she was talking about how badly this message is needed. I don't know if she's ever seen another Stop Having Kids demonstration and interacted with any of these other people again. I'm sure if she hasn't yet, like, there's definitely going to be another time. And I would love for her to volunteer and be part of that. Like, no one, if you don't want to talk to people from the public, you don't have to. You could just go to something like this and just hold a sign. If someone tries to talk to you, you can say, "Oh, we'll talk to that person over there." I mean, when I do this with the person that I mentioned before, Stephanie, she like, when people ask about like what is Stop Having Kids and stuff, she doesn't really want to engage in that much, and I think she doesn't really know how to answer that a lot of the time. So she just directs people to me, which is totally fine. But you never, like that Gabrielle, you just never know when you're going to meet these kinds of people, because there's a whole spectrum of people who are glad to see the Stop Having Kids. There's a whole spectrum of them. So there's some people who are like Gabrielle, and they get super, super amped. Yeah. And they're just so excited about it. She was the first person I ever saw react like that. And that was only the second Stop Having Kids outreach demonstration I ever did. Wow. And I've seen reactions like that a handful of times since then, or actually more than a handful of times, but she's the only one who I've actually actively got an interview with. I need to start doing that more, asking people if they'd like to do an interview. But that would be incredible. Well, I mean, I was going to say this a little later, but I mean, that video and also the videos that you sent me, I just, this is really powerful footage. I mean, I think you're capturing some really incredible reactions. I mean, have you thought at all about, and I know you're kind of at the beginning of the video end of things, but I mean, have you given any thought to maybe turning some of what you're doing into a documentary? Oh yeah, that's definitely happening. I actually had a feeling that was going to be your next question.
Okay. Yeah. I hope you do it.
Not before you started talking, but when you're like a few words into your sentences, like I thought, okay, that's where she's probably going to go with this.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think very early on in doing this, I was like, this has to be a documentary. So, yeah,
It has to.
I'm not like actively filming it right now, besides just like when I'm going out and getting footage anyway. But yeah, I'm that is 100% a part of the plan, and it's going to be a very kind of intersectional documentary. It's going to talk about a lot of different issues and where our world is headed. And
Amazing.
I think it's going to be super cool because I have actually a lot of documentary filmmaking experience.
Perfect.
So I'm not like an amateur by any means. And I think when I've seen the interest that people have seen when I'm doing the demos and I'm wearing the shirt and stuff. So yeah. I can only imagine if I had a documentary or something on Netflix that said Stop Having Kids or whatever, but it's going to have Stop Having Kids in the name. I can imagine so many people wanting to view that, So I think it's definitely going to become a documentary for sure.
I'm so happy to hear that because, the strength of some of this footage just, it already looks like it's a part of a documentary almost, And I'm very excited to hear you say that. In one of these videos that you shared with me, people do threaten you. You do sometimes end up in some really scary situations. That one guy that drove by said something to the effect of like, your mother should have aborted you, and if you stay out here any longer, I'm going to come do it myself.
Yeah, someone will do the favor, and I think I said, "Are you going to do it?" And he said, "Yeah, I will."
That's a frightening interaction. That's a death threat. So how do you and you handle yourself very well in those kind of situations. But what that has to take some kind of toll on you. How do you manage that kind of thing happening to you?
I'm already prepared for those kinds of interactions. They don't shock me at all. There's, most humans, just being straight up, just don't have respect for life. It's nothing for them to take the life of a chicken or a human or anyone for that matter, to know that others are dying for them, suffering for them.
Right.
So the world's full of people who completely lack empathy and consideration for others, and there's so many people who are sociopathic and psychopathic and sadistic and stuff. People who, if you don't have the same exact beliefs as them, they think you deserve punishment or just to have your life ended. So I'm well aware that, anytime I do this, no matter where I am, I may interact with people like that.
Right.
And it's just part of the game. Like the only way to avoid it is just not go out and do this stuff. And there's no way I'm not going to like stay inside and not go out and do this stuff. It's too important to not do.
Exactly.
So I don't want to show these people that I'm scared, and I'm not scared. I'm not putting like on a facade or anything. I'm not scared. So they can do whatever they want. It's their life. I'm doing what I want with my life. They can do what they want with their life. And, if anyone ever does kill me one day, I hope someone finds them and does shit to them. I don't even want them to go to prison. I would want someone to take their life too. And not in the most pretty way. So I don't care. That's not, it doesn't like inhibit me from doing anything. People are fucked. A lot of people are really messed up. So you just have to expect shit like that to happen. And that guy he was really nasty.
Yeah, it was awful.
It's amazing that he'll make a death threat without even knowing anything about what I'm doing. Like, I'm just holding a sign that says Stop Having Kids. It has a website on it. How about you actually go look at the website and see if you still want to kill me after you look at the website? Like, is it really that bad? Certainly not promoting or enacting any kind of control over anyone's life or their bodies. So
exactly.
Like I said to you before, I'm trying to make this as much as something as possible that people just can't argue against and can't talk shit on.
Yeah.
And like the one thing is like the name, Stop Having Kids. It's so bold and straightforward and just immediately makes people feel these emotions and stuff. But I'm not going to water down the message, you know?
Well, it's even more straightforward than just using the term antinatalism, because antinatalism can mean a lot of different things. You know, but stop having kids is it's so direct.
Exactly,
You know?
and that's what we need. We need more directness in this world. We need people to just be more like straight up and just like honest about things. And I'm not gonna change the messaging around just to please people and keep away the controversy and keep away like the threats and stuff. Like I can't think of a more perfect name than stop having kids. And I've had some people say, oh, you know, I like what you're doing, but the name's not good. The name's not right. People are going to shut it down or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, first off, have you seen how people react to this? Like a lot of people love the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And you need something that's like really attention grabbing, and it really achieves that. And people have, it's been a little while since anyone's done this, but people have, you know, reached out and be like, I don't like your name. And they try to offer suggestions, like alternatives. And you wouldn't believe some of these names that people have said. Like they're just so cringy.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't do anything. Like people, if I were to choose any of these names that people have suggested, people would look at the sign and look away and just forget they ever even saw me, you know, and it wouldn't lead to anything. So stop having kids is not much in this world is perfect, but I think the name stop having kids is perfect. So it's not going anywhere.
Well, your reaction to all of this, I think, you know, just shows how the incredible amount of passion you have for all of this. And you really do deserve huge respect for just how brave you are in the face of all this, because I just don't think there's too many people that would be. So there's like this sort of emotional roller coaster that the Krishna guy goes through in the video that you sent me, that it's really like astonishing. I mean, he really appears to have, you know, over the course of the conversation, really kind of be broke down to his core. And he's like a hysterical mess by the end.
Yeah.
I mean, do you ever, I think about this all the time in my own outreach and stuff. I mean, do you ever worry about the effect that what you're saying is going to have on someone? Because I think it's absolutely true that antinatalism has all this potential to do like literally all the good in the world. But it also does shake people to their very foundations. And a lot of people can't really stand to be shaken in that kind of way.
Yeah, they have no self-regulation, a lot of these people.
Right, exactly. And so their reaction to all of this is so over the top emotional, you know. Mm-hmm. And so how do you deal with that? And how do you deal with people getting belligerent in the way that this guy did?
I just try to stay as calm as possible, as rational as possible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change my opinion or what I perceive as truth just to please someone else.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I tell people, like, you know, we can just end the conversation. Like I did say that in the interaction with that guy. I was like, you know, we're not going to see eye to eye, which is totally fine. And, you know, you can go ahead on your way. And we could have ended it like that. And that would have blocked him from getting to that point where he was just like fucking hysterical. But he didn't want to do that. I offered that opportunity to him and he didn't take it up. I was being the rational one. And
absolutely.
And so he really caused himself to have a fit. I tried to get him to leave the situation and he didn't want to. So I think it's a waste of time and energy and emotions for both of us in all these kinds of scenarios, because I'm very firm in my opinion about certain things. And I do think having kids is selfish, mainly other than circumstances related to force.
Right.
And I've seen this over and over again when I bring up the subject to people, that having kids is always selfish. And they say, oh, no, it's not. And I say, oh, well, can you just name one example? That sometimes I ask them for one or two examples. Can you just name an example of a reason to have kids that's not selfish? And they can't do it, or they have to resort to some bullshit, or they do say something. I'm like, well, that's selfish. And I explain why. And I was explaining to this guy, well, even if you do it for that God you believe in, it's still selfish, because it's not for that kid. You're doing it to please a God you believe in. So it's rooted in your belief of this God. And yeah, people, there was this one woman I talked to in a grocery store once, and I'm typically not the person who just starts conversations with strangers, but ever since wearing Stop Having Kids, I like to, because then they'll see that they'll see the Stop Having Kids, and then it can lead to a conversation about that kind of stuff, about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I saw this woman, this was a little while back. She was grabbing a thing of soy milk in the store, and I really liked the brand. So I was like, yeah, I really like this soy milk. Just 2 ingredients, just water and soybeans, which is the way shit should be. You shouldn't have to add all this stuff to it.
Right.
I was like, have you ever tried that soy milk? And I couldn't remember what she said, but then what I was trying to achieve, I achieved. She asked about the Stop Having Kids. So we got into a conversation, and she's like, you see a lot of these people who are like, well, I think people are having too many kids, and I think only responsible people should be having kids. And it's like, okay, well, what's that? Because it's inherently irresponsible to be having kids. And, it's a total gamble. And so I was just like talking to her about some stuff, and I was saying that like all the reasons to have kids are selfish. And she's like, no, there's reasons to have kids that are not selfish. And I was like, well, okay, so can you just name one example for me? And she's like, oh, we really got to go now. She was like, I mean, she was just shopping in the store, and she was with her husband. Her husband's just like standing there. He wasn't engaged in the conversation at all. She's like, oh, we really got to go now. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's fine. But before you go, can you just name one example of a reason to have kids that's unselfish? I mean, if all you're doing is naming a reason, you only have to say like a couple words or something, that's no time. You have the time to tell me those words. She's like, oh, no, we really got to go now. And she couldn't just admit that there's no unselfish reasons to have kids.
Yep.
And this topic, when I've seen it over and over again, like they get heated when you bring up this idea that having kids is completely selfish, and they feel that it's not. They can't figure out a reason why it's not, but they feel that it's not.
Right. And
then they can't just admit, oh, I was wrong. Actually, there are no, because humans are horrible at admitting that they're wrong about something. That's
exactly
a huge reason why our world is so messed up, because humans can't change their behavior all the time, and they can't admit that they were wrong about stuff. Everyone wants to think that they're so good and they haven't done anything, haven't made any mistakes or anything. But yeah, so I consider that woman a coward because she couldn't just admit it. And then I consider the guy from that video that you watched, he was a coward too. He couldn't just admit it.
Yeah.
And then he resorts to the Krishna thing, and then he can't even explain it. Like, I'm saying, no, that's still selfish. And so then he just starts making what humans do is they always make up stories to fit their emotions. So he started, and people do this all the time, he started making up stories about me. Like, so you're just trying to thin the human race. Where did I ever say, people say you're just trying to, you want to kill all humans or blah, blah, blah. Where did I ever, like, that didn't come out of my mouth. Doesn't
or that you don't respect women.
Or that I don't respect women. Like, yeah. So they keep making stories up about you to support their emotions, which is so fucking selfish in itself. And it's like, it's a scapegoating thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a scary interaction.
Yeah. I mean, that guy had really bad energy. He was in my face. There was spit coming out of his mouth and landing on my face. And I don't want any kind of physical altercation.
No.
That's not why I'm out there. I'm out there. He said, why are you even out here then? I said, I'm out here to have positive conversations with people. And that's the truth. And that's what happens most of the time. And this conversation with the guy wasn't positive, and it wasn't going anywhere. And that's why I said, well, we're not going to see eye to eye. So you can go be on your way now. Like, what's the point?
You handled it very well. I mean, he just completely devolved as a human being in that moment. I mean, it was kind of, I mean, the guy, it's kind of funny that guy that drove by and said that really horrible thing kind of disarmed the Krishna guy for a minute. Like, it kind of made him think like, well, that's a crazy reaction to this. Mm-hmm. But then he kind of ended up in the same place as the conversation went on. Yeah. So it was really, really, I mean, again, that's why
called me a loser.
He called you a loser. He made all kinds of accusations. I mean, again, I don't know what else to say other than that. This is just such incredible material for some kind of documentary, because you're documenting a kind of psychological reaction, to a subject that's just really not been documented before.
Yeah, and you could write all the stuff you want about why having kids is selfish, and I have a whole section on the website about that. It's called the page is called Why, or no, it's actually called Why Humans Have Kids, but it states that all the reasons are egocentric and selfish, and but it's like how the website does get quite a bit of traffic. Like I'm loving that, but at the same time, you also got to be realistic and just know that a lot of people aren't going to actually go to the website and they're not going to read stuff. So, what people like to consume these days is videos. Right. So you got to put this in video form too. And it's one thing to sit in front of a camera and explain, but that's going to bore a lot of people. A lot of people aren't going to be interested in that. But if you can show these interactions, and people love drama. Exactly. This guy, I'm just living my life. I'm just out there doing outreach. He came up to me, asked some questions. He flipped out. I was just being really polite and respectful and mature and rational. I didn't antagonize him or anything. I wasn't trying to get him to get angry. I don't try to get anyone to get angry.
You were totally respectful.
Yeah. I mean, I take this very seriously. I want as many people to get on board with this message as possible. I want as many people to agree with it as possible. I'm not looking to make people angry. No. But the reality of the world is that a lot of humans, they're not good at controlling their anger. They're not good at processing why they're angry, why they're feeling these ways. And they're not good at containing their anger and working through it. Like he wanted to act like he's like, in the beginning of the video, he wants to act like he's so mature and just like gets it. And he's like all spiritual and just like, knows maybe more than a lot of other people, like how the world works. And he did say some good lines. Like he said something about how, I can't remember exactly how he put it, but in the beginning he's talking about how this whole idea that there's like a right way to live and you have to be like this to be human, like that's total bullshit. Right. And I mean, that's totally right. And that's a big part of Stop Having Kids, like promoting authentic living and not abiding by these stories that have been handed down to us about like our gender roles and like steps you have to, life paths you have to follow and all that stuff. So he was on board with that, but it was this idea that having kids is always selfish that you see his facial expression really change when I said selfish. Flip out. Yeah. So. Well, I'm glad that that's not the normal reaction. I mean, that's the best takeaway. Oh yeah. I mean, if that's not the norm, which is phenomenal news. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was concerned for you in that video, and I mean, what else can I say other than stay? I love what you're doing, but stay safe out there for sure. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm, just the art of Stop Having Kids. We talked quite a bit about the website. I think the website's phenomenal. I love all the visuals on the website. I wanted to say that I love your merch. So far I have a t-shirt. I have a bunch of the bumper stickers. I'm actually going to give a bunch away at I have a contest every year for people to make their first anti-natalist video. And so I'm going to give those away. And I love the signs. Are these signs something that people can order through the website? The signs are actually available for people to just download for free. So if you go on the website in the top menu, there's a section called Get Involved. Under Get Involved, there's Get Active. Yeah. From there, there's all the different ways you can get active in the movement. So one way is just, buying the merch and wearing that. Yeah. Another way is printing out, there's different posters you can print out and hang on poles or wherever you want. Like that would be super cool if there were any anti-natalist business owners who have stores and they would like put them in their windows. I would love that. The signs you can, the ones with just the words, you can, I have them formatted for 20-inch by 30-inch because I think that's like the perfect size to be holding, and I always get them printed double-sided. Okay. So you can go out and hold those. You can print them at a smaller size. I've been also printing them at just 11 by 17 paper, and I've been kind of tougher paper, not like the real flimsy kind. And I've been hanging those up on street poles and stuff. There's flyers, and actually just a couple of hours ago, I now have the second version of the Stop Having Kids flyer. So it's okay. Awesome. The one that I already have available, the double-sided one I already have available on the website, that's there to stay. But now I have another one, and the front of it is about how having kids is selfish, and it lists the top, like, however many reasons, I don't know if it's 15 or what, of why humans have kids. And the back is the benefits of living a child-free lifestyle. So now there's two different flyers available that people can give away. I really recommend, especially if you wear a t-shirt, a tank top, or a face mask, I really recommend printing out some of those handout cards, double-sided handout cards. I take them with me everywhere, and I give them out almost every time I go out. That lets people know that this is like a movement and something much bigger than just a t-shirt. And then they can pay. I see people all the time. Well, I've had people like ask me for extras to give to other people, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell my wife about this, or I'm gonna go tell my friend about this, or whatever." So yeah, I got the signs, the posters, the handout cards, the flyers, the merch. I think that covers it for now. I might be missing one thing.
That's awesome.
But yeah, there's like, so if people don't want to get involved with the actual street outreach, there's all these other ways you can get involved. You can go wear the stuff, or you can go print stuff out and hang it up. So yeah, I don't want to get involved with like having to get stuff printed from somewhere and then ship it to people.
Yeah, I can understand that. Right.
Everyone can just, do that locally wherever they live. And if they run into any kind of issues, I can help them out. But just try to make it as easy as possible for people.
Yeah. No, I love all the tools you've made for people. It's a great service to the community. I also love this other initiative you have going, encouraging people to write Stop Having Kids or stophavingkids.org on money, on dollar bills.
Yeah.
How is that going so far? Is that kind of taken off?
No, I don't think so. Honestly, like I don't even do it that much because it's not that I don't feel like it. I just forget all the time.
Yeah.
So I actually should make a note, like on my desk or something, and just as like a constant reminder, and it'll eventually become second nature to me. But so
it's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are doing it. I've promoted it a little bit, not that much. I haven't actually even thought about that in in probably over a month.
Okay.
So yeah, that's not much of an initiative right now, but over time I should definitely get better at practicing that myself and also promoting it too. But yeah, that's a good, easy way to get the message out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't take much time to write that on some currency, and then that's going to get passed around, and it's just a really good way to, I don't think people should just write Stop Having Kids on there. I think they should write the actual website, because it still says Stop Having Kids, but then they can get led to the website. And
I think that's probably wise. Yeah, for sure. I realized last night that I was somehow not signed up for it. I feel really bad about that, but I did fix it. So can you tell me a little bit about the newsletter and how often you're releasing them? How many did I miss?
Yeah. So the newsletter, I've been doing that typically, I think about a couple times a month.
Okay.
And I would encourage everyone to sign up for it. And I talk about highlights from the outreach and what I've been giving away to people, because I donate like a lot of food and stuff. If there's like, new merch available, I'll talk about that. If there's new, like for example, the new flyers are going to become available very soon. I'll probably put those on the website in the next couple of days. So I'll be mentioning that in the next newsletter, the Excellent. YouTube video. So I would definitely, anyone who's like really into Stop Having Kids, I would encourage you to sign up for the newsletter, because even if you do follow on social media, I always put stuff in the newsletter that I don't also put on social media.
Okay.
So yeah, talk about a wide variety of stuff, and I've had a lot of really good feedback from the newsletters. And
excellent.
Yeah, I'm just really glad to start getting some video content out there soon, because so far with the newsletters, it's been mostly photos. So people haven't really, like, I've been talking about, when I was here, like there was like all this support, and I don't know how many people actually believe it, because people's expectations are that this wouldn't be supported, and people are so used to people lying to them and lying for marketing reasons and for whatever other reasons. And I'm just like completely honest. So, it'll be great now to start showing more than just photos, but,
for sure. Well, but speaking of the photography and just the images, I mean, another one of the campaigns that you've initiated is something I'm incredibly excited about, because it's something I've long wanted to see myself, and that's the billboard campaign. So what is the status of that, and can you tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do with that? Yeah,
you're gonna be disappointed about this, but the status of that is canceled. In all caps.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay. It's kind of okay. It's pretty depressing, but It's going to have to wait. So it's just too early on. There's just not enough support.
Yeah.
So I tested the waters in a newsletter, and then if it was going to go well, I was going to post on social media. But in a newsletter, I had made a GoFundMe, and the GoFundMe was for various things. So just a few examples for the GoFundMe. Getting a mega banner for the Seattle chapter. So Isaac wanted a 30-foot banner out there.
Oh, wow.
So I wanted to fundraise for that. And then I wanted to fundraise for search engine optimization service. So way more people through like the search results and stuff, they would be finding Stop Having Kids. And that's like a pretty big chunk of money. So that's just a couple examples. There were a bunch of other things that I was trying to fundraise for, but it was one general fundraiser to cover a bunch of things, and I listed all the different things, and I had about 300 people sign up for the newsletter.
Wow.
I sent it out, and I let a couple of days go by, and there was not a single donation. And it's like, if I'm not going to get a donation for that, there's no way these billboards are going to get covered, because the billboards, that was over $20,000, I think, because I wanted to do I could have just done, there were two locations that I really liked in Austin, Texas. One was close to 9,000, one was close to 11,000. So I could have technically just done one, which would have been fine. I mean, one's still huge, and these are like very, very prominent locations. And I specifically wanted this to be during Austin City Limits, which is a big music festival out there. So not only is it just the Austin locals, it's like a huge rush of outsiders too. So I just thought it was perfect, but there's just no way I'm going to be able to even achieve like a fraction of that goal at this point in time. So, I mean, I don't think so, at least.
Well, listen, you launched in March. It's only July. You've come so far already. I'm sure you'll get your opportunity at some point.
Oh yeah,
I have no doubt.
Yeah, I have no doubt too. It's just not the right timing. So I didn't even want to follow through with it and make the GoFundMe. So because I'm just setting myself up for disappointment, and
I hear you.
I'm already so busy, and fundraising is super taxing. So I canceled the other GoFundMe that I had for the SEO and the big banner and all the other stuff. I just canceled it. And luckily Isaac ended up just ordering the banner himself. So he actually, awesome. They haven't gone out and used it yet, but he got it last Sunday. So yeah, they'll have a 30 by 5 foot Stop Having Kids banner with the website to hold over the freeway out there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So the only issue is finding enough people to, help out with that. So that's the challenge right now.
And they're going to need a whole bunch of people to hold that.
Exactly.
That steady.
Yeah, it's massive. So yeah, I wish I could have given you better news about the billboard.
That's okay.
I was not very realistic about that.
It's almost like, from my own experience, it's almost like being a kid in a candy store starting some of this activism, because so much hasn't been done yet. Yeah. So it's easy to kind of like pile it on yourself, and want to and just take on too much too soon. Yeah. So I feel like pacing oneself is a big part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I'm just hoping for a day where I meet one, or actually hopefully more, like really wealthy donors who want to like put some serious funding into this. Because it's haven't gone like a whole lot so far, really. Yeah. And just I've had a couple people be like, oh, I know some people who will actually probably give you lots of money, and no one's followed through. So it's just, it's kind of just disappointing. But over time, like things are going to fall into place for sure. I
have no doubt.
Yeah, I have no doubt either. So it's not an if, it's when.
Yeah. Well, let me talk to you a little bit about sort of like the traveling around that this and just that Stop Having Kids is doing, and like the local chapters that are popping up. Like there's one in New York now, from what I understand. And you've got a couple of events on the way. Like, I assume you're still going to do something in October, correct, for Austin City Limits?
Yeah, well, there isn't really an active group in New York. So I went to New York. I bought a bunch of materials, like a bunch of signs and a banner and cards and stuff for them out in New York.
Okay.
And I went one day. We did it in Times Square, which was not like a very good location. There was a lot of negativity, a lot of hostility, a lot of support too.
Sorry to hear that.
But it was a pretty draining day. It was just not. It's not that New York City is not a good place to do it. It's just that location's not a good place to do it.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then, yeah, I don't know what's going on because there was a girl out there who she was just there for a little bit because she had another activism event she had to go to after Stop Having Kids, or that she wanted to go to. And she acted like she was all about it, and she wanted to take over the chapter and get it started out there. And that was back months ago, and I haven't heard anything from her. And I've messaged her multiple times to see what's going on, but haven't heard anything. So I don't know what's up with that. But yeah, I have no doubt it'll get started at some point. It's just a shame that they have all that stuff right now that I paid for too, and they have all this great opportunity in New York, and they're not utilizing it. Ran into another situation, a couple other situations similar to that too, where I bought a bunch of materials for people who said that they were going to do this and they didn't follow through. So I'm just not doing that anymore. If people want to start their own thing, they can use their own money. This stuff's not super expensive to get. They can use their own money and do it. I'm not gonna continue to pay for stuff. And I just, I already have like so many of my own costs anyway.
That's a huge burden on you for sure. You have to fit the bill for somebody to do that. Yeah.
So I would, I'm excited about Minneapolis because I went out there to help the start of Minneapolis. And there's, like I was saying before, there's so much support, and there were some people who came out and joined, and they were really into it. But there's like an issue there with people who say, oh yeah, I'm interested in coming, and then they just don't come out, or they just keep making excuses. So that's still kind of getting started. And then Seattle, they've been fairly consistent from what I can tell, but they still have a lot of building up to do in terms of like volunteers. Portland, it's so far it's mostly just been me and Stephanie. And then actually there was this girl I asked to come out last night, and actually I just like paid her like as a model, just like to, I mean, she was like very interested in Stop Having Kids, but just like paid her to like come out there and stand out there with signs. And I mean, this is not just like some random person. Like, she was very interested. And she found out about the word anti-natalist because of me. And yeah, it was like last night, that was just days ago, and last night she's holding a sign that says normalize anti-natalism. But Stephanie, she started as a model, so I had just gotten the tank tops in, and so I needed to get a model. And so I put it out there, she responded, and then we did it. And she said that she'd be down to like volunteer and like go do this outreach stuff with me. So we've just done it consistently every week since the week I met her. And then, there was this new girl last night who came out, and she wants to continue doing this. So it was like this, in both cases, it was this one-time paid thing. And then they see what it's like, and they want to keep doing it as a volunteer.
Amazing.
So I think I'm just going to keep going with that approach for a little while. And I'll pay people for like an hour and a half to come out, and they'll see how awesome it is. And a lot of them will want to keep doing it as a volunteer. So, I mean, if that's what it's going to take, because that's the only thing that's worked so far, as far as just like asking people I know personally, or someone who I know personally knows them, and I'm like, hey, are you down to go do this? And they say, yeah. But then they're like, oh yeah, but I can't do it because of this and this. And then you reach out next week, oh, can you do it then? Oh no, I can't because this and this. And they just keep having excuse after excuse. After a certain number of times, I just don't ask anymore. So that approach is not working. And what I've this whole modeling thing that models turned into volunteers has been working. So I'm just gonna keep doing that. It's a little bit of investment, but
it's working.
It's working, and it's so worth it. And I've done this by myself too. Like I've I was traveling down to California. I was going to do this in LA,
Yeah.
in Vegas and Phoenix. And I ended up turning around after spending about a couple days in Oakland. I decided to turn around for numerous reasons, but one of the big reasons was that there were just so few participants.
Yeah.
And I was getting kind of stressed about it, but I tried it by myself in California. I did it for one day alone in Berkeley and one day alone in Stockton.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
both times I did it alone, one person joined me, like one person just walking by joined me. So I would suggest, and also had lots of really good conversations with people and lots of support, lots of people. That's another thing too about this. So many people who are walking and driving by, they'll take photos and videos. Yeah. I don't know what's happening with this stuff, but I know a lot of people are sharing it. So even as just one person, you can go out there and do this, and you might find other people to continue doing with you, because they'll discover you doing it and they'll want to do it too. So I would suggest to people that, I don't know, I really just with the reality of just human civilization, I don't really feel, I wouldn't feel comfortable about encouraging any females to do this alone.
Yeah, that's right.
I would say they should have at least another person with them, at least one.
Yeah.
But as far as males go, I would say, like, I don't think it would hurt to try it alone. I just threw myself into it, and they were both fairly good experiences. So
that would be my only reservation too. Just like speaking for myself, like I've always wanted to get more into this kind of activism. You know, I'm been more based in the online antinatalist world for the last 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't done much of like the kind of thing that you're doing, and I've always wanted to, but that doing it alone has always been sort of my one fear, just in case, like, what might happen.
And it's also not like the greatest optics to be doing it alone, because then it looks like some kind of lonely message.
Right.
Kind of has more of like a mainstream appeal the more people you have doing it.
Yeah. Especially like, just seeing from the videos and the photos, like there's a real strength in the numbers thing that you guys have achieved, I think. And at the same time, I mean, you really have to be credited that, like, it's a bunch of you, but it's not intimidating, like the way that you're presenting yourself, and I don't know that would be true in everybody's hands.
Yeah, that's the thing too. You don't you don't know, like, when someone comes out how they're going to be. There was one guy who showed up at he was just like walking by our demo in Minneapolis, and I didn't know this, but he had been drinking beforehand and he was drunk, and he yelled something out to someone that was completely inappropriate, and it kind of caused like a whole scene. And I don't want people like that joining. I don't want problematic people.
Right.
I think it's really important to be polite and respectful, and I don't mind like getting angry at people, but you have to let some amount of time pass. You have to have some kind of threshold before the anger can be released.
Right.
Shouldn't. So people really need to like have some decent amount of like self-regulation and stuff. And I agree. I'm really big about professionalism. I really want this to be as professional as possible. It's not like, I don't want it to be sloppy. I don't want people out there with like cardboard written signs.
No, it all looks very professional. It comes off that way for sure.
That's definitely my goal. And I don't want people like shouting shit at people, no bullhorns. It's just like totally unnecessary. And we really gotta, people have misconceptions and beliefs about all kinds of stuff, about vegans, about anti-natalists, and about so many other things we can mention. And I'm really about busting all those misconceptions. Right. So I think for me, how I give away free food and other stuff at all the outreach events, that shows that I care. And it's not like just some like fuck humans thing. And people are always like, you're trying to make humans extinct. It's like, if I'm trying to make humans extinct, why am I giving away this food that's helped sustaining their life? Right. So,
the fact that you give stuff away is, again, like, I think it's an important part of the tone that you're setting. Yeah.
And the organizer in Minneapolis, Ashley, she has a giveaway. She does the giveaway boxes at her outreach events too. As far as I know, they don't do that. They don't do that at all in Seattle. Okay. But I think I think as this spreads and more people do it, more people will do that to give away stuff. And it's encouraged. It's not required.
Right.
And I am a bit privileged here in Portland with the giveaway box because I have some advantages. And actually, so does Ashley in Minneapolis. The thing we both have in common is locally, we live near grocery liquidators.
Oh,
so
wow.
There are these grocery stores that have unbelievable amounts of vegan options for ridiculously cheap. We're talking about stuff that's coming in damaged packaging, or it's expired but perfectly good, or it's like overproduced. And they get this stuff and they sell it at a small fraction of the retail cost. Like, for example, I went into one of these stores yesterday.
Yeah.
And they had these special kind of tortillas, not like the wheat base, but I think it's like cassava flour and some other stuff.
Okay.
And these tortillas retail normally cost about $8 or $9, and they were 2 for $1 at the store. And then they had frozen vegan pizzas for $2. So I can get a lot of the stuff that I give away comes from these places where I can get a lot of good stuff for really cheap.
Really high quality stuff.
Yeah, really high quality stuff. And some of the most amazing products I've tried have come from these places. And then also sometimes some of the local vegan places here will give me like their leftovers, and I'll give that away.
Amazing.
There's actually a woman here who owns a vegan cinnamon roll place called Hail Snail. And she's or actually they're non-binary. They have a kid, and they're super supportive of stop having kids. So they've given me tons of like cinnamon rolls and pizza rolls to go hand out to people.
Amazing.
So yeah, trying to really work in the aspect of food waste with this too.
Yeah. No, I love
Food
that
waste
aspect
and
of it.
sustainability, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So hypothetically speaking, if I were to want to start a local chapter here in Chicago, how would I go about that? What would I need to do?
Well, first off, anyone who wants to start a chapter, they're free to, email me. The email from the website goes directly to me. They can, tell me that they want to start a chapter, ask any questions they want. If you ever wanted to do a phone call or like something like this, to get more information, that's totally fine with me. I would definitely, I think it would help to review the website, which obviously you've already done. I think it would help to watch video footage to see how like I do it and to see how other people do it, because I think a lot of people just don't really know how to talk about this. Like there is one guy who is doing this in Seattle, and he never even went to the Stop Having Kids website, and he's like holding stuff that has the website on it, but he's never even been to it. And people, I heard someone go up to him and they're like, "What do you mean by this? Like, what is this Stop Having Kids?" And he's just like, just what it says, stop having kids. And it's like, no, there's like way more to it than that.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of really lazy on his part.
Yeah.
I really like coming at it too from the point that like, why are people bringing other people into a world that they distract themselves from constantly? Because so many people are living constantly trying to distract themselves so they don't have to think about all this stuff. And the fact that they're still willing to like bring people into a world where the state of the world's like that. That's very highlighted on the website, and I have signs that people hold that say that.
I actually think that's one of the strongest messages on the whole site. And I think it's one of
and no one ever talks about that.
No one ever talks about it.
I've never heard any other anti-natalist talk about that.
No, I mean, look, how much of the population is on antidepressants? How much of the people are doing everything they can to not have to deal with the horror of their lives.
On antidepressants, doing other kinds of drugs, watching pornography all day, playing video games all day, watching movies, reruns over and over and again. Like, the list goes on. I think it's one of the biggest points that we should be making, because I think a lot of people, so much of the human population is just surviving and just coping. So I think people should really get familiar with the subject matter and the goals of Stop Having Kids. And then, review the video footage that I'm going to be putting out there. And definitely, I think certain things are pretty essential to have out there with you. Definitely the handout cards at the very least, but I would also encourage getting a bunch of flyers printed out. I always like to offer people, would you like a card or a flyer? Sometimes people want both. Sometimes, people prefer the card. Some people prefer the flyer. Yeah. it's also so awesome because then when you can't really have a full-on conversation with someone's just like passing by in their car, they're at a red light or whatever, you can just go run them a flyer, a card. And I don't push them on anyone. I always ask people, would you like one? And if they say yeah, I give it to them. If they say no, I'm like, okay. So yeah, I think that stuff, some signs, a banner. I just recently I'm not handy at all myself, but I have a local friend who's really handy, and he just made really cool frame for my banner. So now instead of it needing to be held by 2 or 3 people, which even sometimes doesn't work out well, I can just hold it myself, or whoever holds it can hold it themselves. It's really light.
Nice.
And it doesn't flop over or like come up with the wind or anything. So it's like totally expanded, and it's got a nice frame. So I would say if you're handy, build something like that for the banner. If not, reach out to me, because my local friend said he's willing to make these for other people. Like that's his contribution to the movement.
Right.
So yeah, I would say the signs and the banner are super attention grabbing. And then just the outreach materials, which are very economical. I got my signs printed on chloroplast. I'm not like super proud of it because it is plastic, but it should have like a much longer life than if I were to do some kind of paper. Even though I'm like super anti-plastic, it's impossible to avoid. And I'm more about like, getting something and having it for longer than buying more of something else that's not going to last as long. So I definitely recommend getting on chloroplast. And if you want to, I always get them double-sided because there's always people walking by from behind. That way they can read it. I've had a lot of interactions with people who saw the signs from behind. If you do go the chloroplast way, I would call around to different places and ask them their prices, because it varies very widely. Like I've gotten them from a couple different places, and my favorite place so far, they do it for $36 per double-sided one. The place that I've ordered most of them from before were $40, but the quality is not nearly as good. And then I reached out to another local company the other day. I asked how much theirs were. Theirs were $66. Wow. So you got 36, 40, and 66. Oh, then another person quoted me 51. So yeah, you definitely want to try to find something probably like in the more 30 something to $40 range. If you find something beyond that, you're probably overpaying. But yeah, so there's on the Get Active page, like there's an outreach signs page, not constantly, but often adding to that. I think there's about 80 signs available there now. They're not in any kind of order, but I did make it just the other day way easier to scroll through on the mobile app or the mobile site, because it used to be when you were scrolling, you would only see one sign at a time. Whereas like on the desktop, you're seeing 3 at a time in each row. But now there's 2 columns, so you can see 2 at a time. So it's a little bit easier. But yeah, I think that's all you need. All you need is that stuff, and you're good to go. And you can have it's always so worthwhile. And I can't make any guarantees to anyone, but I think, I think people would really be surprised about how fulfilling this work can be. Like it's really been refreshing for my life. And I didn't make this like for any kind of selfish reason, obviously, but that has been like a benefit to myself. Like it has, because the world's like going to shit pretty hard. Yeah. And this has brightened my own personal life a bit. And when I've done it with other people, I'm seeing them like become a lot happier, like in the moment, and going home and feeling better. So I would totally recommend it to you. Hopefully you have some local people who would be willing to join you. If not, maybe even, I don't know, maybe you can put something out on Craigslist or I don't know. But anyway, like I told you, there are those 2 models who are not activists by any means. They've never done any activism before. Yeah. And they came out, met me, saw some stuff, and were like, I want to continue to do this. And the girl last night held up like 5 different signs. She was smiling the whole time, and she was like, amazing. She was all about it. So yeah. So
last month, as far as I know, Stop Having Kids received its first media attention. And I was curious what you thought about the response, the way that they wrote about you in those.
Oh man, it was hilarious.
It's really funny.
I thought it was hilarious as fuck. Yeah, of course, yeah, they were saying negative stuff, but at least they were taking quotes right from the website.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I feel are inarguable, and they're just like stating these quotes like to talk shit, but they're not really saying how they're wrong or anything. So I love that because, those people who read the article, they might not go to the website, but they're at least going to see those talking points, which is huge. And, it's helping to accelerate the conversation, whatever side of the conversation you're on. And, it's only going to spread. And yeah, I don't necessarily agree with what's the quote people always say, like any publicity is great publicity. I think that depends, but I think for Stop Having Kids, it's 100% of the time. As long as it's not just like completely made up stuff and they're not taking anything real that Stop Having Kids has done or wrote. Like if someone were to just completely fabricate a story about someone from Stop Having Kids and make up something completely make up something that didn't happen, that wouldn't necessarily be good publicity. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought that was all great. Like they just look like idiots. Or I don't really like to say the word idiots. I should just say they look really unintelligent and irrational.
Ignorant. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really ignorant. Like they look like jerks, and they look very insensitive. And yeah, so I had no idea that was going to happen. Like that was just from that one day when we were in Edina. We were in Edina for 3 to 3.5 hours. Edina, Minnesota, a very white, affluent area. And then we were in Minneapolis later that night. And in Edina, we had a lot of support. We had some pretty negative people too, but we had a lot of support. And so someone came over and took that photo of us that got used for that one article. And I don't even know who that person was, but yeah, sometimes when you see someone taking a photo, like, they're like really positive about this. Sometimes that they're negative about it and they're going to like talk shit with it. And then other times you just can't tell. So there was one woman who I think said or looked said something negative or looked kind of negative, and she took a photo from the passenger seat of a car. So I wonder if it was that person. Maybe she sent it to someone she knows who was one of those writers. But I love how there was this one person who writes for, I think it was called Social Actuality.
Yeah. And
they made a rebuttal to one of those articles, and they did a fantastic job. So I don't know if that person's ever going to listen to this podcast, but if you're listening, I never reached out to you. I would like to say thank you for doing that. But
they're writing about antinatalism more and more, which is it's been interesting to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really think that's going to become more of a hot topic, writing about antinatalism, where I think a year from now, a lot more people are going to know that word. And
I think so too. I mean, since 2019, and there was everything that happened with Raphael Samuel, in the antinatalism in the Indian context, and that was sort of like the first time that there was all this like global media, around the subject. I just think it's ripe for that. Like it's definitely,
I think everything that's been happening in the last couple of years, I think if I started Stop Having Kids 3 or 4 years ago, it wouldn't have nearly the same amount of support that it does now. But I think now people can more people can see how fucked things are and how things are only going to continue to get worse.
Yeah.
So it's easier for them to get on board, because people like really latch on to hope, and they have really weird ways of expressing how there's hope.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming increasingly hard to convince yourself and to convince others that there's any amount of hope for us and, I guess the world at large.
Well, you know what? I think sometimes people need to realize that the greatest hope there can be is prevention.
Yeah.
And so, for me, antinatalism is extremely hopeful in that sense.
I'm definitely hopeful that anti-natalism is going to explode for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not hopeful that we're going to like solve any of our big problems. I'm not hopeful that humans are going to stop raping and
maybe not, but we can definitely do our part to prevent more of that from happening.
Exactly. And that's what this is all about. Like at the very root of Stop Having Kids, it's about suffering reduction.
Exactly.
And we can't remove all suffering, but we can reduce suffering.
Right.
And while we're talking about this, it's so funny because it just made me think of this one story of that happened in Minneapolis. There was this guy who saw us holding the banner, and he came over to talk to us, and we were just like talking about all the suffering in the world, and he didn't really seem too concerned about that. And he was like, well, I think people should still be having kids because, passing on your genes and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we just couldn't see eye to eye because he's just like so egotistical, and we're trying to, be like looking out for people and stuff. And this woman is crossing the street, and she sees the Stop Having Kids banner, and she's like, oh my God, this is like so sad. And like sad that we're doing this and we have this message. And she's like, I can't remember what she said exactly. I do have it on video, so this will be coming out at some point. But she had said something about like how the world is hopeless. And so it's like, I guess like we're making the world more hopeless or something. And it's like, so if you already believe that the world is hopeless, shouldn't you be on board with this message? Why would you be okay with people bringing other life into a hopeless world?
Right, exactly.
So it's just so ironic. And yeah, it's just amazing how people can't make these common or seemingly common sense connections.
Exactly. What do you think anti-natalists are doing right so far? And what do you think we're doing wrong?
That's a really good question. Well, I think I'll start with the wrong. I think what anti-natalists are doing wrong is they're not really talking about this that much, in real life at least.
Right.
At least not with people beyond their like maybe best friends and their partners and stuff. A lot of people are scared to talk about this stuff. So I think people need to get over that and be more expressive about this. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all good. It's about reducing suffering. It's about spreading ethics, more ethical ways of living. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not something that everyone's going to agree with, but people don't have to agree with it. And you should just be okay with the idea of people maybe not agreeing with you and maybe having nasty reactions and stuff. But people need to stop assuming that everyone's going to be against it, because there's way more people that are for this than aren't. And even if they are against it, whatever, you should still bring it up. And some people can be against something one day, and then before it, like a day later or a week later or a year later or whatever, like, you could have a conversation with someone about what's happening to other animals, like in systems of exploitation, and they may not give a shit that day. And then, later on, something might change within them and they might start caring. And it's because you had that conversation with them. Right. So I think it's totally worth it to be outspoken about it. Yeah, that's one thing that I think anti-natalists are doing wrong. They're being too scared to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a huge disservice in my opinion.
The fear problem is huge.
Yeah, the fear and anxiety and all the excuses and stuff. Like, just come on, people. And what are anti-natalists doing right? Well, okay. What are anti-natalists doing right? I would say there's a lot more anti-natalist content coming out, and I think that's really important. Anything that any kind of cause or any kind of thing that we want to bring awareness to, we have to pump out as much content as possible. Right. As much good content. Don't put crap out there. But yeah, I mean, I think you would agree that there's more anti-natalist content coming out now than ever.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
It's a pretty big boom. Yeah. And that's extremely important, because if we don't have all that content, there's less things that people can find. Right. So like, for example, if the book Better to Have Never Been never existed, a lot less people would know about antinatalism. I mean, David Banatar technically coined the word, so maybe that wasn't the best example to use. But either way, whatever you're doing, like that guy Sean I was talking about earlier, who made the antinatalist rap, and he had some other stuff. When you can put out stuff out there that's quality, and that has like a sharing aspect to it, like a aspect that makes people really want to share it. I think that's huge. Because that can spread, and people can hear the word anti-natalist and look that up, not know what it meant before, and then they want to spread it around. And sometimes there's people who find out about the word anti-natalist and they want to talk shit. But, if, for example, there was one woman when I was in New York City who came up to us very hostile, and all she wanted to do was just talk shit. And she went onto her Instagram live and put me on her Instagram live, and I didn't mind. I embraced it. And she's just trying to talk shit about me and to me in front of her whole audience. And I was just providing very rational responses to all her questions and her accusations. And, I don't know what her following was like, but there were certainly people watching at the moment. There are going to be people watching later. And out of all the people that are watching it, there has to be some amount, even though she's against me, there has to be some amount of people who agree with me.
Right. You're connecting to somebody.
Yeah. And who will maybe look into this or talk about this with other, I don't know, who knows. But yeah, I think to answer your question, what are anti-natalists doing right? I think that we're on a good path right now in terms of like putting out more content. I think there should be way more than there is, but but we're doing an okay job.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And I think people should really be sharing anything that they find that's quality, whether it's stop having kids or anything else. Share it with people.
Absolutely.
And, I'm really glad that it is like becoming more of a thing now, and there's more vegans talking about it. I think I say veganism without anti-natalism. I call that dark ages veganism.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's so backwards and antiquated to not be talking about that and to say that that's not something that matters.
Yeah. The connecting of those two worlds has just it's got to happen. It's got to start becoming more solid, and I think that it will over time. But and I will say, it's really only in the last couple of years that I've seen any evidence that that's starting. But it is, and that's a bit a good thing to see.
Yeah.
What do you see as the future of antinatalist activism?
Honestly, probably a lot of stop having kids stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
I think stop having kids, not necessarily like in the super short term near future, but as time goes on, I think it's going to spread like crazy. I want to have, if you look at, you could drive around for 30 days straight and you might not find one billboard that is meaningful in any kind of regard, right?
Yeah.
And most of the billboards that exist are total junk. They're just marketing horrible shit to us. And I would love to be a part of that change. Like, I want to have stop having kids billboards that really promote really great positive messages. And I think that needs to be the future. Like, we have to get this message out as widely as possible, and I think billboards are the best way to do that.
I agree.
Because there's so many people that are going to be driving by. There's going to be people who take photos while they're driving by, and they're going to spread it. There's going to the media is going to latch onto that. So yeah, I am so eager to have billboards and bus ads and subway ads and all that kind of stuff, because shit would explode if that could become the case. And yeah, it's not enough to just recommend like, oh, read Better to Have Never Been and go listen to the Exploring Antinatalism podcast and go watch some of Sean's videos and like all this other stuff. Like, it's all good that stuff exists for sure. Yeah. But we need something that's going to reach a wider amount of people in a shorter amount of time.
It sticks it in people's faces. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I think the future of antinatalism is advertising, marketing.
I agree. Absolutely.
We need people who aren't bored with this message to start funding this. Yeah. It's really important. And a lot of people have way more money than they can do anything with. So y'all got my email address.
Well, that perfectly leads me into my last question is, Dietz, if people want to help stop having kids, what should they do? Where should they go?
Okay. Well, there's so many ways to help. So I guess we could start with the non-financial ways to help. Can talk to other people about these kinds of subjects and recommend them stop having kids as a resource. Share the stop having kids content on whatever platforms it is. I would say it's I always like getting positive messages from people. I've gotten a lot of that, a lot of really great feedback. That doesn't necessarily like help the whole thing, but that helps me to keep going. Not that I've begun to descend or stop or anything like that, but it's good to like get those reminders,
Absolutely.
And then more like tangible ways of helping me. And also a great way to help is just go do this outreach. Go hang up these, if you don't want to go do outreach, or if you want to do this in addition to outreach, go hang up these signs, the posters and the signs. If you own a business, consider putting one or more of those in your window. I think people would be scared of losing business, but I doubt they'll lose any business. If anything, they might gain business because people are going to be like, this is badass.
Yeah.
You can donate in multiple ways. There's a PayPal. There's a LiberaPay, which no one's donated through that yet, but that's it's something where you sign up monthly. It's kind of like Patreon, but without all like the fanciness. And I don't like Patreon takes a cut. LiberaPay doesn't take a cut, but there is like still the processing fee.
Okay.
So yeah, Patreon, LiberaPay, PayPal. Stop Having Kids is on Venmo now, just to Stop Having Kids.
Awesome.
Buying the merch is a great way to support. Buying the stickers and stuff. If anyone wants to, volunteer in any capacity, could use like translators. Right now, I have 3 translators working on the Spanish translation.
Oh,
I just had someone volunteer to do Chinese translation. I had someone from Germany volunteer to do a translation. So obviously we're going to keep needing more places. That's a great way to help. And that's all I can think of at the moment. But I'm sure there's other creative ways people can come up with to help.
Well, like I said before, I'll have a whole bunch of links in the description. So yeah, anybody out there that wants to donate, please go check out Stop Having Kids out on Patreon, and also the website where you can donate. And help them as much as you can. Dietz, I think what you're doing is so important. It's a huge inspiration to me personally. Antinatalist activism is still a fairly new concept. And I think, as we said before, I think you found a very effective formula for engaging with a wider audience around the subject of antinatalism. And I'm just so delighted with the incredible amount of talent, polish, and passion you and everyone involved with Stop Having Kids has shown. I'm so excited to continue to watch the growth of Stop Having Kids, and I hope one day I'll be able to participate in one of your demonstrations. I'd really love to do that.
Please.
I'd love it. So thank you so much for being my guest today on the Exploring Antinatalism podcast. It's been a true pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a pleasure, and I'm so glad for a lot of people to hear this.
Please visit the Stop Having Kids website for more information, and please check out all the awesome resources and merch while you're there, and sign up for the mailing list. Please follow Stop Having Kids on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for all kinds of new updates. Links below to find out all the ways you can donate to Stop Having Kids, including PayPal, LiberaPay, and Patreon. Thank you for listening to the Exploring Antinatalism Podcast. This has been Amanda Oldphan Sukenick and Mark J. Maharaj. You can find us on the YouTube channels Forever Wolf Films and Question Mark, respectively. Keep up with my daily antinatalist news updates at Antinatal News on Twitter. Please follow the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and email us at exploringantinatalism@gmail.com. The podcast can be listened to on the YouTube channel Exploring Antinatalism Podcast, as well as Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Our website, www.exploringantinatalism.com, was designed by the amazing Visions Noirs. Please visit Visions Noirs at www.bionoir.com and find more links to more of his work below. Logo art by the incredible LifeSucks. Please visit his YouTube channel, and if you would like to perhaps purchase one of the new Exploring Antinatalism t-shirts by LifeSucks, please visit his Etsy page at www.etsy.com/shop/LifeSucksPublishing. And proudly announcing, our new theme music has been graciously provided by I Doubt It. I Doubt It is an alum of the Exploring Antinatalism podcast, so please go listen to his episode 4, and visit his amazing YouTube channel, and subscribe. All the best, and bye for now.